How about now? Okay, now we're good. Now we're good. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting us to join you here tonight at the community board meeting. Before I get started with going over some of our crime numbers and some of our achievements over the last month or so, there's two things I'd like to acknowledge. At the table here beside me is our new Special Operations Lieutenant, Lieutenant Freddie Cantillo. Our previous Special Operations Lieutenant was transferred, elevated to the position of the 81st Precinct Detective Squad Commander. So we wish him well in his future endeavors. And I just want to give a couple moments to let Lieutenant Cantillo come up and introduce himself to everybody.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? All right, perfect. Like the inspector said, my name is Lieutenant Freddie Cantillo. Newly assigned to the Special Operations Lieutenant position. I'm new to this role, but I'm not new to the precinct. I've been working in the 83rd Precinct as a lieutenant for the last about a year. I was the Midnight Platoon Commander for the last year here. I met a couple of members of the community. I met Camacho before. So I am familiar with the precinct. But even before that, I also worked here as a police officer when I first got hired in 2012. So I walked the footpost in this precinct, and I am excited to be back, work with you guys, and looking forward to it. Y va a hablar español, vamos a hablar español aquí, ¿ok? Aquí va a hablar español. All right, si no sabes, te va a aprender. All right? So, like I said, looking forward to work with everybody. Hey.
Another thing we spoke about is we closed out last year, right? We were looking for those venues to build our message, right? And bring that forward with a lot of the crime prevention things we do here. So that we spoke about what our build-a-block meetings that our NCOs chaired. So we have an upcoming build-a-block meeting this Thursday in our sector Charlie. And I thought it was saw fit after speaking with Celeste and Mr. Camacho to bring the actual NCOs down to the community board meeting, let them introduce themselves individually, speak about the sector they work in, and the specifics of the build-a-block meeting for Thursday.
Good evening. My name is Officer Prasad. I've been in NCO for about 2 years. I've been in the A3 for approximately 10 and a half so far. I've been in this position, like I said, for the last 2 years. I cover Sector Charlie with Warner Officer Gutierrez. We cover Flushing Avenue to Harmon Street, Broadway to Wilson. Like the Deputy Inspector said, tomorrow we have a double block meeting. It's going to be at 790 Bushwick Avenue at the library at 6 p.m. Basically, we're going to talk about our crime trends within that sector, whatever crimes are on the rise, whatever crimes are on the fall, ways that you can prevent yourself from being a victim of those crimes. And then we open up the floor to questions and any concerns you want to bring to our attention so we can address it later on in the future.
Want to touch on a couple of topics, then I'll go over some of the crime figures, and then I'll open it up for questions to the room. So first thing, I want to just acknowledge the work that our community affairs officers did today, Officer Kowalczyk and Officer Lopez. They put together a very, very nice youth engagement event at the Salvation Army on Bushwick Avenue. It was called Love You to Pizzas. They had a bouncy house, very well attended. Mr. Camacho was there as well this afternoon. Just a good day as the kids were out of school and gave them a venue to attend and spend some time at. So I just want to acknowledge that hard work for earlier this afternoon. So as I started off last night, right, in our community council meeting, we have to acknowledge what happened in this community last Tuesday morning on Jefferson Avenue. Very, very tragic incident involving a domestic violence motivated homicide. Very media worthy. So I'm sure everybody's well aware of the incident I'm talking about. And the only reason I choose to again bring it up in this venue here is we had our domestic violence sergeant present at the meeting last night, and just to speak to some of the services that unit provides, their working relationships with other city, state agencies, and really like the overall theme of their presentation was what, right? That it's an interaction with law enforcement when you work with the domestic violence team, but it's an interaction with law enforcement that's not always, looking for a criminal sort of resolution or conclusion to a situation, right? There's a lot of services, and their primary goal is to stabilize that family unit. So, as we offered last night, and I'll offer again today, they're open, they're very well based off of referrals as well. We all know, those families, those couples that are up on hard times, and, please don't hesitate to reach out to those domestic violence officers. We'll provide the contact information at the end of the meeting. But we have to offer those services because that's a tragedy, and it's incumbent on all of us, right? We're a community as a whole, law enforcement, public safety, but we work in lockstep with everybody in this room. So, please take advantage of those things. Before I get to the crime figures, last thing I want to speak about is something that we're seeing some increases in over the past month or so. Crime overall, we spoke about our decreases for 2024 last meeting. We were about 13.8% decrease for the year to date. And now into 2025, we've furthered those decreases. We're at about 38% decrease in overall index crime in the 8-3 precinct, down in rapes, robberies, burglaries, grand larcenies, autos, good work getting done there within the confines of the command and the admirable efforts of the officers on a day in and day out basis. But there's always work to do. There's already little like areas of clusters that we see that, like, a little more attention here, a little more precise deployment there. And then just looking over what we could do and work on over the past month or so is twofold. They both involved vehicles, right? First one is auto breaks, breaking into vehicles. We're seeing somewhat of a cluster of this in our sector, Adam. So you're talking about like the southwestern part of the command, Halsey Street to Eastern Parkway, Broadway to Evergreen. Vehicles parked there overnight, sometimes left unlocked, sometimes involves broken windows. But what do they all involve? They all involve visible property within the vehicle, right? And that's the message we try and get out right now, is that, we have to make efforts to not provide the opportunity for these incidents to occur. Like, instead of leaving those headphones or that laptop or that book bag visible in the rear seat of a vehicle, ideally we want it brought inside the house at the end of every night, right? Like, there's really no need to leave the property in the car. But if we see fit to leave in the vehicle, maybe we can make the better decision to secure it in the trunk, right? So as that individual's up and down some of those residential streets on the overnight times and they're peering into vehicles, the less opportunities that are out there, right? We'll do a little better job of addressing those incidents. But that's the first thing I want to speak of. And then next thing that is also auto related is larcenies, right? Stolen motor vehicles. Something we spoke about in this room extensively last year. Remember, we spoke about the Hyundais and the way they use the USB chargers to break the steering columns and to start those vehicles and take over them. Different type of MO that we're seeing currently. We're seeing now incidents that are more driven by vehicles that are left running. Again, right? We understand how like that thought process goes. It's a cold night. We'll say, let me just run into this deli quick and grab that quart of milk or whatever it is that we need. And we walk away from the vehicle and we leave it running, thinking like, yeah, I'm in and out and I'm going to come back out and my car is still going to be there on the corner. Again, something that we could probably make a better choice in doing, like, let's just find that legal spot for the car. Let's turn it off and then do your shopping and return to the vehicle. And again, like, not present that opportunity for these type of incidents to occur. Small little changes in behavior, right, really results in a drastic type of incident, because it's all opportunity-based instances, if everybody understands what I'm saying. I'm more than willing to answer some questions though. So that's it for the presentation. I'm going to open it up now for dialogue around the room. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Inspector. I just want to say thank you to the domestic violence sergeant. She did an excellent presentation last night, and she gave me a handful of flyers to put out tonight in English and Spanish. So anyone needing some information about domestic violence, the flyers are over there.
Great, great. Thank you very much.
Elvina Davis, Community Board 4. I know the fire department is not here, but could you just address what happened with the fire today?
Yep, so there was a structure fire at 1155 Halsey Street. It's a church at that location, located between Central and Wilson Avenues. Not too sure of the exact, nothing criminal in nature, but possibly there may have been some work going on inside the location. Unfortunately, started a pretty extensive structure fire inside of the church itself, which in turn made the right elevation wall collapse into the adjoining home to the right. I believe that address was 1159 Halsey Street. No injuries were reported. There are 5 displacements from the residents of 1159 Halsey Street. Firefighting operations, they're in their secondary nature at this point where, the main fire is extinguished and then just working on some hot spots. There is still a traffic freeze in and around the area. So currently Halsey Street is closed between Evergreen Avenue and Wilson Avenue, and Central Avenue is closed to southbound vehicular traffic from Weirfield Street to Eldridge Street. We're probably going to be able to clear up that secondary perimeter, I'd say within the next couple of hours, but Halsey Street between Wilson Avenue and Central Avenue is going to remain closed to vehicular and pedestrian traffic at least till overnight, because there is a little concern about the stability of the front elevation of that church. And there's going to be a secondary interagency meeting scheduled on the block 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, and then we should have some further updates for everybody.
Good evening, everyone. Felix Ceballos, CB4. Because we're talking about that incident, times ago, 2 people passed away because it was a fire, and 2 vehicles and 2 water pump, they block the water pump and they can get water. You had some plan for that situation, because no matter what, people continue block the water pump.
Yep.
Thank
So
you.
it's something we spoke about extensively last night. Fortunately, at the scene of this fire, that wasn't an issue. The fire department was able to access all those fire hydrants within the vicinity of the location. But it is, we're going to have our traffic partners engaged. What we ask that the continuous 311 reporting remains in effect. If you see a blocked hydrant, call it into 311, because that's the way we receive the job and we're able to direct resources accordingly. And, we all understand that 311 can be reported anonymously, but sometimes we're able to have even a further follow-up if we have a known caller, right? And that person may be reporting a type of kind of continuous condition, correct? Where they see the same car parking on the same hydrant night in and night out. And when we could have that further follow-up, we can make sure our response is that much more precise. But that's going to continue. Thank you for that question.
Anyone?
Okay, good night.
Stephanie Anderson, CB4 member. Yes, the fire hydrant is something that concerns us every single summer, because on my block, or on the corner of my block, they just leave it on and wash the cars and even start their own car wash. So when we call 311, is it the police that are going to come or the fire department?
So we'll receive those calls sometimes even through 911, and then refer them for the fire department to come out and come and shut those hydrants. But yeah, listen, that's how we know Bushwick enters the summer, right? The music goes on and the hydrants get open. And we know it's summertime in Bushwick. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, obviously a concerning condition. So please continue to file those in, and we'll pass those over to the appropriate agency.
And what you were saying before about the Hyundais, about what do they do?
So this is something we spoke about last year when we were experiencing like a rash of, actually, if you remember when you had texted me, I sent you that like
Yes.
kind of like downloadable program that you could do to update, I guess, like the internal technology of the vehicle, where you're no longer to do that to that specific type of model. But for
Right.
Hyundais and Kias, there was something that became like popular over social media where you were able to break the steering column of the vehicle and actually insert a USB charger and get the vehicle started. So you were able to remove it just with using a simple USB charger. So the thing that I had forwarded you was like kind of an internal update for the system where
Yeah.
now that doesn't make it possible on those cars anymore.
Okay, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Captain. I'll let you go home early, see?
I appreciate that.
I mean, Deputy Inspector, I'm sorry.
All right, so it looks like we have one person at least from the team from Council Land Use here right now. Tim, are you there? Okay, good to see you all. Welcome.
I'm short, but that'll work. Oh, does it come down? I got it. Thank you. Yeah, right. No, thank you. My name is Paris Strotter. I work for the city council. I'm the Is it on? Hello? Too low. Okay, thank you. Paris Strotter, work for the city council's planning and land use division, where I'm the director. I'm here with our deputy director, Brian Paul. We should be close because there might be questions that you guys have that I can't answer. He's smarter than me. And then we're joined also by Tim Anderson, who is one of the planners in our team that's assigned to this community district, or I'm sorry, this council district. Council member Nurse, who I understand is joining us virtually today. So we have a presentation. We had sent it in advance, but we also have it on flash drive. Can we pull it up maybe, or does that make sense or no? Great. Kind of want. Okay, well, yeah, I'm sorry that it's kind of over there. Hopefully I'm not blocking anybody's view. The council member invited us to talk about City of Yes. Before I jump into the presentation, actually I should mention that DCP also has representatives in the room. So I forget your name, I'm sorry. Veronica Brown. Thank you for being here. And just, going forward, city planning is kind of the holders of the zoning resolution. So obviously the council's involved in the approval of any changes to zoning, but going forward in terms of implementation of zoning rules, you'd look to that agency for questions and answers. Okay, so let's jump in. So I'm gonna skip this just so we can keep going in terms of time. So just a reminder, because it's been a while since a lot of the public meetings about City of Yes, specifically the housing zoning text amendment. What was the reason that we're doing it? Or what was the reason that the mayor and DCP, Department of City Planning, proposed it? One of the major reasons was to increase housing across the city. As we're in a housing crisis, there needs to be more housing. There needs to be more affordable housing, truly affordable housing. But also housing development needs to be more equitable across the city. So community districts like this, you can see on that map, I know it's hard, especially for you, those are behind me, but that map on the right is color coded in terms of housing production over the last 10 years. The community districts in the green have done a fair amount, while districts in yellow, orange, and red have not done very much. Some of those districts have less than a couple hundred units they've done over the last 10 years. And when you look at affordable units, it's even worse. So a lot of the reason why they proposed these text amendments, as controversial as they were, was to try to make distribution of housing production across the city more equitable. Next slide. The way that DCP and the mayor's administration proposed the text amendment is really in two ways, basically, or two zones. Basically high density areas and low density areas. High density areas are in the orange on this map, and low density areas are in blue. All of Community Board 4 is in what's considered high density, except for a few blocks right on the Ridgewood border. And basically because it is all R6 zoning pretty much here in Bushwick. Next slide. Okay, another thing just to mention in terms of how this text amendment interacts with what's been happening generally in housing development and Community Board 4. R6 zoning permits a lot, frankly, because it's high density. There's not a lot of city-owned sites in Bushwick, unfortunately. So a lot of the development that's been happening over the past 10 plus years in Bushwick has been, in Community Board 4, has been market rate development. And because no affordable was required in zoning. You do see some affordable as a result of the old 421A tax abatement. However, I wouldn't call that affordable because it's at 130% AMI, area median income, which is it's very high income, very high rents. So it basically looks like market rate housing, or basically is market rate housing, especially in this neighborhood. Next slide. And this just shows you kind of what I was talking about in terms of R6 zoning versus other types of zoning. The blue is all high density R6 and above zoning, which is pretty much the whole Community Board 4. Next slide. Okay, the major proposal in the high density areas was this concept of universal affordability preference. Next slide. So universal affordability preference, say that 5 times fast. UAP for short, is this idea that we're going to grant more density in high density neighborhoods all over the city. But that additional density has to be affordable. And not only is to be affordable, actually what I just said is kind of relevant to this, it has to be actually truly affordable. So none of this affordable that really isn't affordable. But 60% AMI, which 60% of the area median income is roughly now between, I think it's 67,000 for individual, up to about 85,000 for a family of 4. So it's based on household size, but it is it is affordable to working families. And in terms of extra density, what we're talking about is a 20% increment in terms of floor area ratio, or 20% bigger building. And then depending on the zoning district, some extra height. So usually it translates to either 1 to 3 stories of additional height, depending on which zoning district you are. Next slide. So there's some caveats to that, what I was just explaining in terms of extra height. And so I'm going to go through that just in a second here. So what's allowed before City of Yes is what's pictured here and what was getting built. So basically, generally what you'll have on small lots, if it's quality housing as opposed to height factor, which I can explain later if there's questions, is about 4-story building, all market rate. And like I said, if it had a 421A tax exemption, you might have these like crazy high rent units on the affordable housing lottery that are not really affordable. Next slide. Now with City of Yes, on the left, you see a market rate building that'll now be 5 stories, but that additional floor and 20% more a building is has to be affordable at 60% AMI. And that's assuming that the development is probably also taking advantage of the new tax credit. So 421A is gone, 485X replaces it. someone doesn't have to participate in that program, but they usually will. So on the right, you'll see what would occur if someone chose to do more affordable than they had to, and that they could get subsidy for under 485X, which is likely only to happen if they're getting other subsidy, because who's renting affordable apartments for free? They're going to be looking for subsidy. So probably it would most likely happen in 100% affordable building. So a building through HPD or HCR, HPD, Department of Housing Preservation Development. HCR is the state's housing and community renewal agency. So if you had 100% affordable building that had subsidy for that affordability, then under City of Yes, now you can go up to 8 stories. So, and that's what I said, the nuance here with UAP. This mainly applies to R6 and R7-1 areas on narrow streets where you see that bigger bump. So Bushwick is one of the areas, unique areas in the city that's affected the most by this. But again, if you're doing a traditional market rate building, it's not really a big difference and it's purely affordable. Where you do see the major difference in terms of height and density now is if it's 100% affordable building. So I'm gonna pause there just for a second because I know that's a big deal for this community and it's kind of complex. Just if there's any questions about that, and then I'll keep going.
And that's spelling community board for, two things. Market rent, would you redefine what the market rate is? And the other question is, who is going to monitor and make sure that these people follow through with the zoning plan? We've had people come here before and offer us and say they're going to do certain things. And once they get their contracts, they do what they want to do and forget about the people in this neighborhood. So it's very important to us to know who's monitoring, who is going, what is the procedure for these contractors and these developers who are going to come in here.
Yeah, no, thanks for the question. So, and there's a couple parts there. So just to talk about the enforcement piece first. You mentioned contracts. Oftentimes developers will have contracts with the community or other kind of commitments. Sometimes those live outside of zoning. So the way those are enforced can get complicated, and sometimes it's actually just through a court of law. So as you mentioned, they're not always honored, and that is a problem that we see. Everything that I've been talking about here is either in zoning or it's through a tax abatement with the state. If it's in zoning, then it is enforceable by the city, and the enforcement agency for that is typically the Department of Buildings. Now, we know sometimes the Department of Buildings is not necessarily the best at being responsive, but they do enforce zoning. And there's plenty of occurrences of them, shutting down people, stopping work, etc. Also, I'll get to it later, but as one of the commitments that the city council negotiated, we're increasing the Department of Building staff and their inspection staff in particular, so that they can better enforce these new zoning laws. And then there was another piece, I think, of your question that I missed. Market rate, yeah, thank you. So market rate varies. And, across Community Board 4, if you're on the more eastern side, it's going to be very different from the western side. I don't know if Brian has a better idea. In terms of AMI, I would say that market rate on the western side of the neighborhood is definitely above 100% AMI, probably above 120, 130% AMI. On the eastern side of the neighborhood, I really don't know, actually. But we can get back to you because basically you can pull that information from public sources in terms of what the actual market rate is relative to what is considered affordable. Yeah, what Brian was just saying, is that just to define market rates, so, you know, we're on the all same understanding. Market rate has no affordable regulation at all. So you can charge whatever the market decides. There's no regulation in terms of what the rent level is. Okay, should I keep going? Oh, yeah, sorry.
Hi, Stephanie Anderson, CB4. I wanted to ask about an R6, just how high can they go? Because it seems like buildings are being built so very high right now.
Yeah, it depends. So under the old zoning, R6 was up to, correct me if I'm wrong, Brent, up to 75 feet if it was a quality housing building, which means you had to build at you got more space to build in terms of the front yard, the setback, etc. But you could also do what's called height factor buildings, which means if you set the building back from the street and provided a front yard, then you can go up higher.
Oh.
And your height's controlled by what they call height factor or sky exposure plane. So you do see under the old R6 zoning, these buildings that are kind of like real thin and tall
Yes.
and don't really fit with the neighborhood. Yeah, I mean, those have been allowed basically since 1961 zoning. The shorter and squatter buildings, though, if they design a building like that, it's capped. You can now go up to 9 stories under R6. Just 8 stories? Oh, okay, 8 stories, good. Was this we cut to 8? With City of Yes, those buildings have to be 8 stories, but technically you could still do a height factor building after City of Yes with R6 as well.
Okay, thank you very much.
Why is this?
It's a great question. Why is this good for the neighborhood? That's what you said, right? I mean, that's I can give you my opinion, but that's many people have different opinions about this. So I think it's a hard question to answer. What I would say, and if the council member's on, maybe this is a question she wants to take, is that what this primarily does in Bushwick and Community Board 4 is allows more affordable housing and truly affordable housing.
7,000 is what?
No.
You're saying 67,000, someone has to, how is that affordable?
No, it's a good point. That's not affordable to everyone.
Okay.
That's definitely true.
Our jobs right now, could we apply for something like this? We won't meet that criteria.
Well, I'm going to get to it in a second, but there is a modification that the council did to include some deeper affordability. So I'll talk about that in a second.
Oh, you said some don't have to participate in the tax exemptions.
Oh, if you're doing market rate development,
For what? Market rate developments here,
well, market rate
If we
development is
can't-
allowed today.
if we can't get those to be affordable, right?
Right, but it's allowed. They like that's already allowed. What this text amendment did, at least for this neighborhood, it's different across the city, is, you know, going back to that slide, basically unlocking the yellow on the slide as opposed to the blue. You can do market rate today, no affordable, which I'm sure this neighborhood has basically seen over the past 10 years, especially. Now you're able to do a little bit more development. You can still do that market rate development you could do before, but you can do a little bit more, like one more floor on a 4-story building. You go up to 5 stories now. That additional floor is at that 60% AMI, which again, it's not affordable to everybody, but it's affordable to some.
The people that are coming out are not from the, that are coming into it, correct? People that are coming from other areas, not people that live in Bushwick.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know necessarily where they're coming from, but that's, you know. I do have a number of other slides, so let me kind of keep going.
I just want to ask one question. You indicated 1 bedrooms. We come with families. We come with kids, mothers, grandfathers. That one bedroom activity doesn't count. Because the ratio with them getting a tax abatement is for 1 bedroom that looks like a closet. And we come with families, so I don't know how city council approved this, but we're gonna let you
Yeah.
finish.
The I'm just curious, I don't understand the 1 bedroom comment. Did I mention something about 1 bedroom? Or is it
Yeah,
mentioned on
because
the slide?
it's on here on the slide is a 1 bedroom.
Oh,
With
the
60
example,
AMI is at 1,750.
It's just purely example. Well, we'll get to it in a second, but one of the things proposed would have basically encouraged more studios and 1 bedrooms. And actually, the city council changed that for this neighborhood and others. So we'll get there in a second.
Okay.
Next slide. Okay, so there were concerns about this additional height, again, in R6 areas with narrow streets and R7-1 areas with narrow streets. And then on here is R8, but I don't think there's any R8 in this neighborhood. We took down the allowable height by 1 story. So instead of being able to go up as high as you could under the original City of Yes, we took it down by 1 floor. Next slide. Yes, yeah. Thank you. The other, I mentioned this about affordability. So to your point, ma'am, about 60% AMI, and this is something that's different across the city. And this is the problem with doing a citywide text amendment, but generally in a lot of neighborhoods, they had your same sentiment, which is 60% AMI is great, but like there's a lot of the neighborhood, a lot of people that locks out. So what about them? So what we have is if you have a building that's of sufficient size, and is it 50 units? Yeah, because we did it on square footage, but so if you have a 50 unit building or more, then that's of that 60%, or I'm sorry, of that 20%, 5% of that, or well, it's actually 25% of the 20%, but it's, so 15% is at 60 and then 5% is at 40% AMI, which 40% AMI is roughly 45,000 to 60,000, depending on family size. Like again, what the 1 to 4 families. So it reaches down a little bit further. I know that still excludes certain people, but it reaches down a little bit further.
Use the mic, use the mic.
I'm sorry.
How many 50-unit buildings do you foresee in this city of Yes, in Bushwick?
It's a great question. I mean, we wouldn't have the exact numbers for Bushwick right now. We could definitely get back to you. This is definitely a question more for DCP because they did the environmental review. But it varies. There's a lot of smaller properties across the city, but generally the ones that actually will get developed are the ones that are larger because just it makes more financial sense to actually go through the development process. So across the city, it's a lot. In Bushwick or in Community Board 4 proper, we'd have to get back to you, but there is a number that we can generate based on the environmental review.
To hear that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
I have
So
a
let's
question.
keep-
May I?
Go ahead, Ms. Hicks.
Deborah Hicks from Community Board 4. Bushwick Avenue was a wreck. And this is a result of not planning, just putting stuff there. There's a disrespect that I find in the developers in that they're not having conversations or even trying to make the neighborhood look somewhat modern, yet efficient and yet available. It just looks like they're just dumping craters, those trays, those crates that you see on the ocean, the barges. And I think it's disrespectful because, like, for example, Macy's is gone. There is no more downtown Brooklyn. And there was history to that. I think your developers need to also make a contract with the community that they'll adhere to some kind of respect or global design that is commensurate with the history. We have lost our history on Bushwick Avenue. There is no more history. Those homes told the history. Those blocks told the history. And now you have stuff between private homes. And I think that the whole idea of height is important, but not all neighborhoods. I mean, downtown looks like Gotham City, I'm told. I don't want that to be a Bushwick kind of thing. And if you take a tour of Bushwick, we don't have high rises. They're plunking them there. So the deception to even allow them to build higher, I think, is an insult to the neighborhood. It's greedy because you're just jumping bodies are going to look like parts of Hong Kong. And there needs to be some reverence to history, to people, to time, to sense, and a commitment from your developers to keep that and not just go for the money. And this city of yes is really becoming a city of crisis. And I don't want people just being dumped somewhere because it's a apartment building. Then it's going to be neglected and not cared for by the people because it just plopped there. And it's too small. Like Mr. Quadra says, we come with families, but even so, we come with breathing air. You can't breathe. You can't put a queen size nothing in a room. So they're not really respected. They're going for the money, not for the aesthetics.
Thank you, Ms. Higgs.
Yeah, and look, a lot of council members shared some of that perspective, and what we try to do through our modifications is is cut down the proposal and make it more contextual with neighborhoods. Again, at least in a neighborhood like this, what the text amendment is doing is unlocking affordable housing opportunity. It's not creating new market rate density.
Dude, I'm sorry. We had a model years ago. Was the model of homes? We're not even building private homes anymore for people. Is that not the city of yes, or we're just trying to crowd people in spots?
I'm sorry, ma'am. I didn't hear
We had Nehemiah's. We have all these beautiful homes
Nehemiah.
from Wilson on
my
down.
homes.
And I thought the goal was to continue to put private homes for home ownership. That was a goal. So there's no longer home ownership as a goal for the city of yes. It's just plumping people in spaces.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. In zoning, you don't see differentiation between rental and home ownership. There's a lot of legal concerns with doing that in zoning. We're trying to push that actually. Certain council members have signed on to a letter asking Department of City Planning to really explore zoning tools that could incentivize home ownership and create more things like Nehemiah. Unfortunately, Nehemiah is very land intensive. If you think about, it's like 2-family or single-family houses. There's not a lot of land, vacant land left in the city, so it's hard to actually recreate models like that. But certainly in more moderate-sized buildings, you could have multifamily home ownership, and that's something that the city council is really pushing to create more of. And I'll get to it later, but there's a commitment where there's been new funding identified for homeownership opportunities that the city council negotiated. Let's keep going if that's okay. Next slide. You can go to the next slide as well. So ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Because this is a high density community, Community Board 4, it doesn't have the same, obviously it doesn't look like this example, which is from Southeast Queens. However, there are properties in the neighborhood that are single family and 2-family where they're detached and they have a rear yard. What this proposal would allow is a separate structure in the rear yard. So actually, let's go to the next slide. Yeah, so if you look at this slide, and again, I apologize to the folks in the back. The blue is what could be a new house, or if you think about an existing house. In the rear of that, in the rear yard, you see something in the yellow. It would be a separate structure that could have a separate dwelling unit or separate apartment. They could rent to anyone. It's up to 800 square feet. Now there are other types of ADUs, but they're less applicable to this neighborhood because it's already high density zoning. So people already have attic apartments, basement apartments. They already have multiple apartments inside the home. Whether those apartments are legal or not is more of a question for building code. than for zoning, because the zoning would allow multiple dwelling units in the same structure anywhere in this neighborhood. But what's new is this idea of in your rear yard, if you have a 1 or 2 family house, you could now build a separate structure in the rear yard that could have an apartment in it.
We
And
have
again, this is only
someone,
for detached 1 and 2 family homes. It's not
someone here that wants.
attached.
And then what we're gonna do is we'll wait until he finishes the presentation because it's a hefty one, because we have to wrap it up. And if anyone, you have copies of this and there's any issues that we may have, we can bring you back.
When you talk about the ADUs, who is going to be responsible for building in that yard? And who will be the owner of that property that's in that yard? Because if I have a one-family home and I have a backyard, am I obligated to allow someone to build there? And am I responsible for the property that's being put there? Will I have to insure that property? Am I going to be paying taxes on that property? I think you guys better come out with something a little bit more Your presentation is interesting, but what I find is that you talk about citywide. We want to know how this is going to affect Bushwick.
Yeah.
Because right now, what's going on in Bushwick is that we are seeing a lot of gentrification, and some of our elders and low-income people are being forced out of this neighborhood, and we don't want that to happen.
Yeah. To your question, so, and there's a couple of modifications that the council did. So one of the council modifications is that ADUs can only be done if it's homeowner occupied. So the owner has to live on the property in order for there to be an ADU. Also, no one can tell you what to do with your property. So if you'd have to make the decision yourself, oh, I want to build this separate structure and rent it out because I want some income. Now, if you do that, the city's going to tax you, of course. Just, part of life. But and you would be also responsible for hiring the contractors, getting the proper building permits. Right now, actually, they're still figuring it out. So it's not like people are actually going to just rush and do it. They have to kind of promulgate rules around how to pull those permits. So that's happening right now that this has become law. But yeah, it's totally the homeowner's decision. The homeowner has to live on the property if it's going to happen. And then they're responsible to make sure that the insurance is in place, et cetera. Now, the city council did pass legislation concurrently with the City of Yes zoning amendment that makes it basically puts in some stringent rules around ADUs. Like most ADUs have to be sprinklered, which is extreme cost. So it means that like if a homeowner is actually going to do it and do it right, which there's going to be inspection, et cetera, these things they're going to be safe and it's going to be done properly.
About the dimension for the yard, because any yard have a restriction about the size, the dimension. Do you know why is the size had to be the yard? Because city has rule for that, for the space you have to leave.
Yeah, so actually on the next slide, we go through some of that, so. We don't have a new slide? Oh, okay, actually, if you can go back 2 slides, I didn't realize it. We changed. So we changed, it used to be 50% coverage. So basically your question, and now that you talked about other regulations, you still have to comply with the stormwater management rule. So if you're you got to be careful increasing impervious coverage because you got to make sure that that your soil is still absorbing enough water that you're not creating runoff. But we did change it. So the maximum permitted coverage of the structure is now 33% or 1/3. So basically you have to leave 2/3 of your rear yard in place. It has to be 5 feet from your neighbors. I'm trying to think of the other change because I'm sorry, I can't read the slide because it's too far away. Yeah, I mean, yeah, these are, yeah, and just, you're not gonna see these in a lot of Bushwick because it's only detached. And we have a map, so let's go there. Next slide. Next slide. So just some of the other changes, I mentioned the homeowner occupancy. Actually, these don't really deal with Bushwick except for flood areas. So the coastal flood zone, we're not allowing these separate structures. Also, inland flood areas, we're not allowing them, and that's a council modification. So next slide. Next slide. Oh, just go back one. Thank you. So on this map, it shows, and it's not going to be legible at all to people, probably where I am and back certainly. But the blue is legible, which is the inland flood zone. This is a new geography it's an old geography in terms of what DEP has been looking at. It's a new geography in terms of regulations. The city council also passed legislation, again, alongside City of Yes, where if you're in these areas, these inland flood areas, you have to build as if we're building in the coastal flood zone. Because the idea is that these area floods. Even though it's inland, they still flood. So you need to lift the property, you need to not put utilities in the basement, et cetera, et cetera. Also, as it pertains to the City of Yes, you can't build that separate structure in your rear yard if you're in an inland flood zone. Some of the other things on this map that are not really legible, but we can share this with the community, of course, we can share this presentation, is this map shows where, based on size, single and two family homes that are not eligible for ADUs and which ones are. That's not the only criteria. That's just looking at just purely size. It just gives you an idea of like what parts of the neighborhood actually ADUs might happen. So again, it's not really legible at this scale, but we'll send this around. Next slide. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I know parking is a big issue here too.
Christopher Graham, CB4. With the ADUs, I didn't know how applicable it's going to be to Bushwick because the majority of the houses in Bushwick, you don't have backyard access unless
right.
you go through the house.
That's
So
right.
I don't know how that's going to happen.
Yeah,
But-
and there's very little applicability relatively. Yeah, there's some, but yeah.
Okay.
But that was your question, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. It's only in limited areas, and we'll provide the map. Yeah.
So that's why Joanna Fuentes, CB4, that's why I'm questioning that. Why is it being presented to Bushwick if it's really not benefiting Bushwick? And you also don't have the numbers of how many of ADUs is going to be able to benefit Bushwick, and if it's something that we want in our community.
Yeah, no, we got these kind of questions, and of course so did DCP throughout the city, because every neighborhood has their concerns or things they like, and they differ by neighborhood. And so the common thing was, well, why are we doing something citywide as opposed to looking neighborhood by neighborhood? Through our modifications, we tried to have some differentiation, but only a certain amount was available to be done. And of course, the community input around that, because it was a citywide text amendment, that's how it was proposed. So yeah, you're totally valid, but we kind of had to work with what we got.
We have someone on Zoom.
Go ahead, Ann.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, so I'm sorry. I wish I could be there. I am not. I'm feeling crummy. I don't want to make anybody sick. And I missed the beginning, so I apologize if but we had asked for this clarification from DCP, and I think that we again, sorry, I'm not feeling very well, so I'm not going to be as coherent as I would like to, but we had asked them to explain the difference between what had been proposed, what we had pushed back on, and we did at the Housing and Land Use Committee and all the other communities. We really pushed back on certain parts of City of Yes that we did not agree with. And then we asked them after it passed, we said, please come back and tell us what are the differences between what we believed in, what we asked for, and what you passed. So I just wanted to like flag that was something that we had asked for, and so I guess that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and what we'll provide is, and it's actually in the appendix of this presentation, is what Community Board 4 said in terms of comments and how council modifications responded to those comments. We wanted to be a little bit more global in this presentation because I think, because it's such a complicated proposal, I think some people just forget what the exact things were that are now law. So I think it was important to explain like what's the law now. But yeah, we'll provide a table where, it's like original proposal, community board 4 comment, and then whether a council modification was made.
But
Just to keep
this presentation that you have right here, of course you'll share it with us, but it's usually nice to get it beforehand so that people can review it.
Yeah, understood. One of those requests concerned the next thing I want to go through, which is parking. There was a lot of concerns from this community board around eliminating the parking requirements altogether, which was proposed citywide. So next slide. So yeah, they had proposed removing all parking requirements. Next slide. Residential parking requirements. What the city council responded with was 3 zones, because there was a lot of different viewpoints, and actually a lot of neighborhoods, believe it or not, are okay eliminating parking requirements and really wanted this. So it just made sense that there be kind of a different approach. We tried to keep it simple because, with 1,400 pages of zoning text that you guys went through, it's, it gets a little bit insane, but we thought 3 zones kind of worked, which is zone 1, just eliminate the parking requirements, residential parking requirements. That doesn't apply anywhere in this neighborhood. The second zone was to substantially reduce parking requirements, but keep them for single and 2-family homes. That's zone 2, which is this neighborhood, and I'll explain more about that in a second. And then zone 3, which was basically leave parking requirements alone. Zone 3 is really neighborhoods that don't have much transit access. In neighborhoods that have at least some transit access, most of them fell into zone 2. Meaning we did not change parking requirements. Yeah. So next slide. Do you want to do this? Because I don't have this memorized and I can't see the slide.
So here's a little detail on zone 2 in R6 zoning specifically. So the parking requirement, large buildings will still have a parking requirement. Buildings with 60 or more apartments. Yeah, buildings with 60 or more apartments will still have a parking requirement, but it's basically, it's cut in half from what it is today. It's 25%, 1 for every 4 units instead of 1 for every 2 units. So it's reduced. So that's what's, again, zone 1 was the original proposal, an entire elimination, no parking requirements at all. Zone 2 is the compromise where you reduce but don't eliminate. Zone 3 is like out in Staten Island with no trains at all, and that's where they're totally maintained. So you will see mid-sized buildings. Probably that's where you'll see the difference most, like buildings with 20, 30, 40 apartments will not require parking anymore. Yeah. So you used to actually have Before this, it was buildings 10 units or smaller didn't require parking. And you would actually sometimes see a developer chop up the property into multiple 10-unit buildings just to avoid building parking. And so that was a strange like artifact of the old policy where people like would do that to get out of the parking requirement. And you get these inefficient buildings or three separate buildings instead of one building. But that's a little detail. But that's the story on parking. One other thing that this community board cared a lot about that council totally undid was the small housing. There was a proposal to allow, basically eliminate what's called the dwelling unit factor, an average apartment size. It would have allowed people to build buildings with all studios, essentially, but now you really can't do that. And the council totally removed that proposal for this neighborhood, only allowed that in downtown Manhattan and very downtown Brooklyn. So that's unchanged. We went back to as if that proposal never existed. But the rest is in the deck, and we can come to the committee, and talk in more detail. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I know it ain't you guys. We voted this in, they voted it in, or city council vote. So we really need to find out what we're getting into and what's gonna happen in these years. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I just want to acknowledge the council member is, I believe, still with us on Zoom. Councilmember Nurse.
Yes, I am. And I'm in transit. I'm sorry I couldn't be at this meeting. But I want to thank Land Use for coming in and trying to break down this proposal. It's very dense. And Anne heard on the need for a breakdown. But I will say that I feel fairly confident that what I recall of CB4's amendments were one as modifications. I'd have to look again, but I feel very confident that we were able to achieve that. And so there are a lot of things in here that don't apply to Bushwick. There are some things that are going to help where there's already right of way, will help create some affordability. So I think the council did a good job. Land use also just didn't mention, or maybe you did, I'm sorry if I didn't hear it, but the City for All package that came with the City of Yes is really where most of the community benefits were fought for and are, and that was on the council's end. So just want to thank them and also CB4 for the recommendations and putting time and going through the proposal. And we can help coordinate a follow-up for a deeper dive. But thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilwoman. Thank you.
All right, we will move on now. That ends our public hearing for this evening. We are starting our regular meeting at 7:07 with our first roll call. I will also invite all board members to quietly help themselves to some food. Since we're doing the roll call, please be aware we'll be calling out your name. Isa Abni, I believe requested to be excused. Stephanie Anderson, don't forget to sign in. Joanna Bennett.
Here
Akiva
online.
Brown. Robert Camacho.
Here.
Felix Ceballos. Andrew Choi.
Here.
Elvina Davis. Karina Dodd. Cecilia Fabian. Freddie Fowler. Joanna Fuentes Singh. Jason Gares. Christopher Graham. Ann Guiney.
Hi. Yes.
Hey, Ann. Zach Hendrickson. Deborah Hicks. Tanisha Honeygan.
Present.
Barbara Jackson. Oh, got you, Tanisha. Barbara Jackson. Barbara Jackson.
Barbara Jackson.
Gotcha, Barbara. Thank you. Kaisha Johnson. Virgie Jones. Tara Jones Thomas. Luisa Jose. Christine Malden. Freddie Madison. Alex Moreno. Ramika Nichols Barnes. Zuma Navoa.
Present.
Raul Rubio. Eliseo Ruiz. Milagros Sandoval. Annette Spellin. James Stewart requested to be excused. Christian Tate is absent. Informed the district office.
You're
Ben
on Zoom.
Tucker. Jerry Valentine. Linda Whitfield.
Present.
Oh, got you, Jerry. Twenty. 22 board members present. That constitutes a quorum. All right, we will move on now to acceptance of the agenda. Is there a motion from the board? Ben makes a motion. Is there a second? Second by Millie. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. Agenda item number 3, acceptance of the previous meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
Motion. Is there a motion to accept?
Alvina Davis makes a motion. Second by Millie. All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. And agenda item number 4, the chairperson's report. Mr. Camacho.
Hello. How we doing? One meeting, please. Thank you. On Thursday at 1:30, there was a luncheon on the 16th with the 83 Precinct Council when the deputy inspector was promoted. That same day, there was an IBZ on Zoom from 4 to 5, which I attended. Then at 6 o'clock was the Community Education Council at PS 384 at 242nd Cooper. Hello. On the 17th of January, Friday at 12, a meeting with CB4 and elected officials with Casa Posiva, which is Riseborough's building. We're coming along over there. As you know, everybody, they moving people around. So February 4th on Tuesday, 6 o'clock Borough Hall meeting. At that meeting, there were approval of the minutes, Borough Board updates. Also, they want us, the Borough Boards to, for us to review the bylaws. This hasn't been done since 1977 in Borough Hall. So, you know, that's gonna be a project and a half. They're forming a committee. I don't know what in detail is gonna be because some of these things are so old that a lot of the things don't even exist now. So we need to touch that up to make sure that we do the right thing. Also on February 5th at 6, Arts and Culture at 6 p.m. I attended from 6 to 8 El Puente South 4th with the CB4's meetings and what people expect for board meetings. It was very well attended. We had a couple of people there. They indicated I was the chair and of this board, and I gave a little a demonstration on what's going to happen and who's going to be in positions to represent the community at large. So there was discussion at February 7th at 3. Myself, Celeste, a couple of board members did a walkthrough, Decal and Wyckoff. We had some situations and some stores that we went to indicating some of the issues that they had. We did speak to them. We're going to follow up with some of them, some of the things that we witnessed ourselves there in regards to people setting up tables and selling loose joints. That was really good. They were even asking us if we wanted to buy cigarettes there. So I know that people brought it up, and I hope y'all saw Twitter the next day. Our deputy inspector and his crew went there and swept the place up. Picked up bags. We don't know if you look on Twitter, you see what he did. Less than a day, he cleaned up that place. We know they were concerned about the illegal trucks, food vending trucks. That a lot of people were complaining that they don't move them at all, which should be moved. They don't get the sweeper there. There's mice. At the end of the day, when they leave, they drop their food off there. Whatever they don't sell, and guess who eats it? Willard. So it's rat infected. The place is terrible. It looks really bad. So we need to get rid of those trucks, and we're going to work with the deputy inspector to make sure that they have their proper stuff and that they move the truck for the sweepers could come and clean. Remember, that's a residential block. That used to be a factory area, but since people use it to living now, people do live there now on that factory area, and also they do business there. So we want to make sure we help that area. On the 12th, the district service cabinet, I want to thank all city agencies. They're always there. We have a handful of city agencies, and they try to address a lot of complaints. As you know, there's a lot of things going on with our mayor and our commissioners. So it's going to be hard to get some stuff going by because we count on our commissioners when we call 311 and we try to speak to the liaison and we don't get. So we want to make sure that our services and our tax dollars go to where we go, regardless of who's in office. Want to make sure that someone's there to hear our cry and feed our complaints. Also, that same day, I also, on the 13th at 6 o'clock, I went to 291, the CEC meeting. There hasn't, as of yet, appointed a superintendent because, you know, kids are out on winter recess. So I know we're supposed to be getting a superintendent. There was 2 people interviewed. So we don't know at the top of our hands. As of the 18th at 6:30, I went to the 8-3 Precinct Council. The 19th at 10, I went to the clergy. Bishop Clark, thank you. This is our clergy president from the 8-3. Sometimes, if you guys got time, it starts at 10 o'clock. And if you want to get a prayer on, you know, for things you did bad during the week, we had them there. We have all the clergies there. We love them. We work with them. And we want to make sure that we keep them there because somebody got to believe in something. Something came out of something. So I don't want to hear what the denominator, they're all there. Whoever it is there. And we need to support our clergy because as you see what's going on with our churches, they're knocking them down. Some of them don't have people and they're working the Zoom and it's hard for the rent and they're selling their land and their park. So we want to make sure that we support our clergies. And please, every third Wednesday at 10 o'clock, I'll go in there and say hi and visit them. Even if you don't want, they run it just like a church in there. And it's a precinct, but they're lovable and you get breakfast too. That's a good thing. You know, so if you don't eat, they serve you breakfast and they give you a prayer and they guide you. So we want to make sure that we help them. Also today from 12 to 3 at 1151 Broadway, Bushwick, I'm sorry, I put Broadway. Bushwick, there was an activity that Community Affairs did. A lot of kids, horseback riding, bouncy ball, pizza, game. It was really very well attended. All those kids, since this winter recess, they want to go make sure they have a place where they can go and have some fun. They were doing chairs and activities with them. And today, the full board meeting, and that is it for my report. Celeste, did I miss anything? Okay, I guess you'll fill it in whatever it is, right?
All set?
Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Camacho? Going once? Anything on Zoom, Kim?
Oh, also remember, I just wanted to fill you guys in on I know maybe Celeste was gonna talk about it, but I'm really. We have been trying to get people to get on this board. You know, a lot of board members are being termed out. Some of them are not filling in, are not coming in, and we've been trying to fill out. I have been going everywhere, every meeting, every place I went. I gave them flyers. They also put it up on the kiosk. When you're walking down Bushwick Avenue, you see it on those big lighted kiosks. I took pictures of it. CB4 need board members. We told our council person. I just wanted to fill you in on something Borough Hall. I know there's someone here from Borough Hall submitted to me, and I'm not happy, but we need to do better. We got over 120,000 to 200 something residents and tenants in Bushwick. And this was in the 14 with just 1 day away for application period. The numbers of CB4 are below requirement applications to appoint to the full board. We received 28 applications. 17 were new and only 11 were reappointed. Well, I think as of now, since we've been complaining and fighting, hopefully we got a little more because we've been going out there. I have been going to the clergy. I have been going to CEC. I have been going to block parties. I have been going everywhere myself and handing out flyers. So we did our due diligence. We wanted, I know our district manager wanted us to see if we can take some of our money and do a new blanket card to the whole Bushwick community and saying, apply, who knows? Obviously, we were not in good terms to do that. We thought they were going to help us. So hopefully, I know we're meeting with our borough president on Thursday, next Thursday at 2, and we'll be letting them know how we feel and what's going on in our community. And mind you, back then, it was Manhattan that filed the lawsuit because they had a waiting list of board members. We don't have that here. So this is something to tell you that each community is different in its own ways. CB1 has ton. East New York don't have a lot of. So you have board members that have been here 20, 30, 40 years. And this is what they believe in. They made Bushwick what it is. And with no fault of their own, they're out of the board. Now, the people that are coming in are not doing their due diligence. And we need to educate them. This is not a place where we rally. This is a place where we make sure that our tax dollars are being well spent and fight for this community. So those are what we really need to focus on, whoever's in this seat and in this position. So it's all about Bushwick. It's not about you or the organization you're in. Bushwick goes from one end to another. If one doesn't agree with one thing, we all got to be together and make sure we're all on the same page.
It's closed. So what?
The 14th.
Someone I know came to me and said she tried to apply, but it was closed.
And I don't know if they allow us to. We don't know if we're short or we are. But they can only, Borough Board, we have someone from Borough Board. Maybe they can help us and guide us if anything. All right, thank you. So we'll find out.
Just because Lacey wasn't using the mic,
Oh, I'm sorry, Lacey.
the response, was
She's
that,
eating. I didn't want to bother.
she doesn't believe that the board is short for members. When we received an email a day before the deadline last week stating that only 28 applications were received, which is why many of you in this room received an email noting that information and asking for you to please circulate it within your networks. So hopefully that final push resulted in some additional people applying.
Christopher Graham, CB4. Just a suggestion, perhaps, if we move the date to the summer months, so like right after you're doing like the block parties and stuff, because what happens is the deadline is in February, you have the holidays and people kind of forget where you've gone out during the summer, and now 6, 7 months have passed. And so I think that the way we think is that if we have the information within 30, 90 days or whatever, it'll be more feasible for us to apply, people to apply and not forget. Thank you.
So I know that under the city charter, we would have to go through the borough president and make a referendum in regard, because that's on the city charter in regards to the time frame. Am I right?
So Mr. Camacho, I can just speak briefly and then Lacey, please eat. So the borough president has actually made a proposal to change the dates. And so that's going to be discussed hopefully in an upcoming charter revision process. So, and that information has been reviewed by the Brooklyn district managers as of right now. I believe the information after this month's conversation will then be shared with the borough board. But that is one of several proposals that the borough president has put forth specifically for community boards.
Okay.
All right, anything else for Mr. Camacho's report? I don't see any hands. We shall keep it moving. Thank you, Mr. Camacho. And we will move on with our introduction of elected officials or representatives. Please come up to the front, name and contact information only. And a light reminder, if you have not signed in up front, please sign in. Elected officials, reps.
Hi, Lacey Tauber, Brooklyn Borough President's Office, 718-802-3894. Hi there, Fran from Councilmember Nurse's Office, 718-642-8664.
Good evening, everyone. Maria Valdez from the Office of Senator Julia Salazar. Phone number is 718-573-1726.
All right. Thank you, everyone. And next we have introduction of any city agency or any agency representatives, community-based organizations, and businesses. Agencies, CBOs, and businesses. Name and contact information only, please.
Hi, I'm David DeRose with the New York City Commission on Human Rights. My contact is ddrosier, ddesrosiers at cchr.nyc.gov, but you can always find us at cchr.nyc.gov, and we help folks facing discrimination citywide. Thank you.
Hi, Bushwick Sports and Recreation, Pablo Rivera, 347-388-8271.
Saradine Lewis for Cabs Health Network. Phone number is 718-388-0220. We offer health screening as well as health workshops and
We have announcements at the end. At one point, something, we'll give you enough time just to name the thing and we'll bring you back. Thank you.
Good evening, Leonard Murphy, Executive Director and Founder of the Bridge to Empowerment Project, 917-559-8478.
Good evening. My name is Louisa. I'm from the DeKalb branch of the Brooklyn Public Library. Our phone number is 718-455-3898.
Hello, everyone. Alex Gutierrez from Riseboro Community Partnership. You can find us at riseboro.org or reach out to me, A. Gutierrez, GUTIERREZ at riseboro.org. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a few folks on Zoom. I cannot see. Can we change it to grid view?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Good evening, Chair, District Manager. My name is Pierre Gidding, Community Affairs Unit, Mayor's Office. And my number is 917-984-1790.
Hi, this is Anton.
Go ahead. Anton?
Hi, yes, this is Anton at Volunteers of America Bushwick Family Residence. We're a family shelter located at 1675 Broadway, and our phone number is 718-574-2701.
Amy, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Amy from the Bushwick Housing Independence Project, or BHIP for short, 929-324-7358, or email is bhiporganize@gmail.com.
Anya?
Hey, folks. Anya Lair from Councilmember Gutierrez's office. You can email us at district34@council.nyc.gov. But if you need me, I'm A. Lair at council.nyc.gov.
Thank you. Denise, then Sabrina.
Good evening. My name is Denise Watkins and I work at SCO Flushing Family Residence. My telephone number is 347-785-5909. I am the program coordinator there.
Happy New Day, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you for this time and space. My name is Sabrina J. Lewis, and I am the executive assistant / program coordinator of Haitian Centers Council. We're an organization in Brooklyn, New York. We have 3 different locations. We're at 1491 Broadway, 4th floor, and we have services for all communities, for mental health services as well, LGBTQ community. And well, my phone number is 718-940-2200, extension 124, if you would like to connect with me on any information regarding our services. I also shared my phone number and our website in the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Luisa, then Z.
Good evening, buenas noches. Luisa Fernandez, Acting Director for the Bushwick Community Partnership at Coalition for Hispanic Family Services. Our phone number is 718-497-6090.
Go ahead, Z.
Oh, good evening. Wearing dual hats tonight. Z Navarro at New York City Department of Health. Number 718-637-5221. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other hands on Zoom. And just in case, if anyone has not helped themselves to some food this evening beyond our board members, everyone is welcome to please help yourself to some food. And thank you to Ms. Jackson for holding it down. All right. We will move on now. We've already heard from our 83rd Precinct Commanding Officer, the Deputy Inspector, and we will go straight into my report. So good evening, everyone, and happy belated Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's and Valentine's Day. This month is also Black History Month, American Heart Month, and Cancer Prevention Month. I hope you've been able to enjoy some of the related activities and events. In the past month, we've also welcomed 16 new public members on the board's various committees. Public members are appointed at the discretion of the board chairperson in September and January, a midterm appointment. Anyone interested in joining a committee can submit the form on the board's website and or contact the district office for more information. And below are the meetings that I've attended in the past month. I will summarize as usual. There was a district managers meeting on Thursday, January 16th, as I referenced earlier, with Borough President Antonio Reynoso. This was in reference to Community Board Central Staff proposal and some of the other charter revision proposals that are still being reviewed. More information to follow on that. But in short, there's been discussion amongst the community boards about how a central office could provide some of the administrative support that we need that's currently divided between different mayoral agencies and also the borough president's office. So our human resources, our payroll, some of our budget functions are facilitated in part by the borough president's office, yet our IT support is handled by the Office of Technology and Innovation. Our budget support is handled by the Office of Management and Budget. It's not an organized system, and we are seeing if an organized system is an option. I also want to offer a belated congrats to the Deputy Inspector. There was a luncheon for his promotion into the role. We're very proud to see, and we hope we get to keep him here for a while. We also, on the same day, I was an attendee for Grow NYC's How to Run a Farm Stand or Food Box webinar. We know that food insecurity is a top issue in Bushwick, and we want to make sure that any resources that are available, any information, we can have access to that and share. I also spoke with the new district manager of Community Board 16, our neighbors in Ocean Hill, Brownsville. It was a check-in to welcome them to the role and also to talk a little bit about one of our shared top capital budget priorities, which is the reconstruction of Broadway. We've also talked a little bit more about their role before they were a board member that became a district manager. The same day I met with Andrew Myers from the Living City Project. Some of you may recall we had about 10 youth a couple of years ago work with us on a community board centric project. We talked about other collaboration opportunities. And on January 23rd, so you heard me mention 16 new public members. I offer a public member orientation. It's a 30-minute meeting where we go over 3 things. I give them an opportunity to share a little bit more about themselves, why they joined, why they were interested, what brought them to Bushwick, also their expertise, their background, and then they have an opportunity to learn a little bit more about their committee, how the committee works. I also share and answer any questions that they have about what's going on in Bushwick. And so it's up to that individual member. If they would like to request an orientation, they can. It is not mandatory. However, I encourage everyone to take advantage. We will be offering, for those that were not able to participate in January, additional sessions in March. And let's see. I also, in addition to Mr. Camacho's outreach, have been checking in with leaders and with other community members over the past few months about board membership. We've had some folks express interest. They wanted to know a little bit more. So I've set up time in a few days to talk with individual folks a little bit more about that. And on Monday, January 27th, I had a meeting with Augustine and Pilar from CUP, the Center for Urban Pedagogy. This is a check-in regarding the community board term limit project that we participated in. I have some good news. It's very tentative right now, but there is some interest from 3 out of the 5 borough presidents in moving forward and continuing that collaboration. So I hope after we have a follow-up meeting the beginning of March to share more information on that. And I spoke the same day with Carol Ann, the Director of Community Boards from the Borough President's Office, regarding the preliminary budget register and the agency responses. For all executive board members that had an opportunity to review that, it is public information, by the way. I'm sure some were shocked to see that there were responses to the budget that basically said, please remove the request without much explanation. So suffice it to say that was concerning, and we will be following up and potentially, improving that process. On Tuesday, January 28th, I had a call with Anthony Drummond from New York City Transit MTA. Anthony is the new liaison. Many of you may remember Andy Inglesby for decades was Bushwick's liaison. We now have seen a couple of transitions, but hopefully Anthony will be sticking with us for a while. And Thursday, February 6th, there was a Future of Community Boards Working Group meeting. That is the meeting with district managers from all 5 boroughs. We talk about some of our shared challenges and goals and priorities for the year. Looking forward to seeing some of that come together. And on February 7th, that was a Friday, there was an interagency site visit with the Department of Transportation, Sanitation, and NYPD on Saddam between Irving and Wyckoff. We received an email stating that there was a issue with a business on the street blocking the sidewalk, and we wanted to make sure that whatever was going on there, the agencies were able to address it. We had a productive walkthrough. The council member's office, want to say thank you to Councilmember Gutierrez's office for submitting the request to DOT, and hopefully we'll get a follow-up report on April 28th, I believe, is when the update is due. But the borough engineers took a look. They're going to potentially install a loading zone and offset some of the ponding that they observed on the street. And Mr. Camacho already covered the Wyckoff Avenue business walkthrough. I will leave the rest of the walkthrough updates to our Economic Development Committee chair later. And Monday, February 10th, I was invited to be a panelist at the Fund for City of New York's 2025 Innovation Across the Silos Conference. It was very well attended. It was so well attended by the time I went to send the invitation to the board, it already sold out. So I could not forward it to everyone. My apologies. So I also partially attended. It was a lot of leaders and stakeholders from across the city, truly attempting to innovate across the silos and making sure that we're speaking to one another as we navigate our new reality. And let's see. I attended a few other issue-specific meetings with the Future of Community Boards Working Group, one in particular with city planning in response to the budget. There will be follow-up there. And I want to thank the Urban Land Institute. On Thursday, February 13th, we helped coordinate the second urban plan workshop for the borough, for Brooklyn. And I want to thank everyone who attended. This was across, all community boards in Brooklyn. It's the second time we've been able to put this together. So thank you to them and thank you to everyone that joined. And on Friday, February 14th, I had a call with Joe Tonelli from Friends of Irving Square Park. Thank you, Joe, for reaching out. We talked a little bit about Shape Up Bushwick and how we can potentially collaborate and bring, some great activities and investments to the park for our annual tradition and just find a way to keep it growing. That is my report this evening. Thank you, everyone. All right. Any questions? Going once, going twice? Anything on Zoom? Nope. All right. We will keep it moving to our committee reports. Committee chairs, I ask you to kindly summarize and encourage everyone to read all of the great information in your reports. And we'll start with arts, culture, technology. Zach.
Hi, everyone. Really excited to be giving the first Arts, Culture, and Technology report, committee report. It was a really great meeting. Yeah, everyone who was there. It was a great meeting, right? It was awesome. Thanks, everybody. A really great committee. I'll try and keep it quick. We had a couple of public presentations at our Arts, Culture, Technology meeting, which was really cool. We had Sue Kessler and Cassandra Brown, who are the co-founder and creative director and the education directors, respectively, of the Bushwick Star, who we've heard from many times in our full board members, in our full board meetings. This was generally just a big overall update of what they've been up to. So I'll definitely summarize, but I want to highlight that since 2007, they've grown from sort of a fledgling art space and to a permanent and vital Brooklyn Cultural Center in a new building. So one of the things they're really happy about is that they have a more accessible location. It's on the ground floor. It's accessible to people of different mobilities. So a big thing that they're pushing is just for people to let everyone know that they should go check out the Brooklyn Star. There's really world-class performing arts and theater that are happening all the time. And they want to host events. They want to host community events. They're exploring that. But I was really blown away by all the work they're already doing in the community. That was a lot of what the committee's questions were about. So a few different things. They have an annual reading series that brings members from the community basically and takes their original writings, scripts for plays and things like that. And it's to surface local talent for original new playwrights, which is really exciting. And then Cassandra Brown, the education director, discussed all the education programming they do, focusing on the Big Green Theater program they do with 4th and 5th graders from around the neighborhood, which explores environmental justice issues through theater, which is awesome. And specifically, the program involves a workshop where students create a full play that culminates in 2 performances at the end of the school year. So that's really great. They also partner with students at El Puente, at high school students and early age college students coming out of that program through a creating performance workshop that's held over 7 different weeks. And they also offer senior storytelling workshops with our seniors in the neighborhood, performing their own pieces about their lives and lived experiences here in the neighborhood. Really, really exciting and some wonderful stuff going on. There's a lot more that we could say, but I'm going to try and keep this quick. So to move us on to the second public presentation, we had a local photographer come and talk with us, Anthony Lazada, who talked to us about his Tormentas Privadas project, or Private Storms. It's a photography project that he's been working on for several years, taking photos of daily life, joys and challenges right here in Bushwick. And without getting all into everything, I think I can just say that everyone there was incredibly moved by the work that Anthony presented to us. And everyone really felt like it captured the sort of complicated history and current moment of what it is to be in Bushwick. Anthony's a lifelong member of this community, and so he was excited to share his work with us. We made some suggestions to Anthony about potentially reaching out to Riseboro to maybe conduct a portrait project with the seniors there, because he's really interested in doing portraiture and telling local stories. And I also suggested that he reach out to our friends at Bushwick Housing and Independence Project because he's really interested in housing struggles in Bushwick specifically. So if anyone at Riseboro or BHIP get an email from Anthony Lazada, please don't ignore it. He's great. And I will also follow up and say that committee members, several of us are planning to attend a showing that he has of his work this week, the 21st at 6 p.m., I want to say, at the Bushwick Community Dark Room, which I can find that address, but it's also 334 Himrod Street. So that is Friday, February 21st at 6 p.m. at the Bushwick Dark Room. I would invite anyone here who wants to come and check it out. I think it'll be a really, really amazing time. Moving on from that, we did not have much in the way of mail. We had a notice from the Office of Technology and Innovation that we read through, and none of us had particularly strong opinions on. So you can check it out. There's a link in the report. And then we also importantly talked about some stuff with logistics and timing of the committee as we get more regular meetings going. But we are exploring a committee project that would have our Arts and Culture and Technology Committee meet once a month outside of regular committee hours to go and explore and make connections with local galleries and art spaces and venues to introduce folks to the community board, as well as to really, make connections within the committee. We all have different ideas about what culture is and means to all of us, and thought it would be a really great way to bring ourselves together while also introducing ourselves to the rest of the community. Then lastly, the last piece of new business was that we are exploring an article, or the subject of an article that I shared with the committee and with Celeste and Mr. Camacho as well. The long and short of it is that a former advisor of Mayor Adams left the administration within the last year or so and started his own private consulting company. And obviously that's headed nowhere good. And essentially we are now in the middle of potentially another no bid contract. So no competition for a very, very expensive, situation where basically the city is now looking at potentially paying for a bunch of electric vehicle charging stations that hang over the street. They look like street lights basically, and they would take up public sidewalk space, and the city would be responsible, and they're getting that for free, and then also the city would be responsible for paying a small fee every single time someone uses those charging stations. So right now we don't know how many of those would be in Bushwick, and none of it is finalized, but it is moving through the processes of very different, varied city agencies. And also the person who owns this company that makes all of these charging stations was a donor to Eric Adams' campaign, just to say that. Again, stop me if you've heard this one before. So yeah, we're looking into how and if we may want to intervene in this process. There's a lot we have to figure out, and it would also involve the transportation committee. So a lot still to figure out, but it's something that's on our radar and that we're looking into. So that is the Arts, Culture, and Technology report, and thank you all very much.
Good evening, everyone. Christine Malden here, Chair of the Economic Development Committee. Still a little high, but I'll try. Also speaking on behalf of Angani, who is not feeling well tonight. We wish her speedy recovery. Thank you. It seems so. It's actually pretty easy. Thank you so much. Thank you. Noted. Okay, so on behalf of the Housing and Land Use Committee, we didn't actually have anything to vote on this last meeting. However, we spent quite a bit of time with the attorney for a developer who is talking about a potential future, I don't know if it's a variance or a rezoning, but in any case, changing the zoning of a plot of land that is a triangular plot at Bushwick, Myrtle, and Troutman, bounded by those streets, which is now, I think, 3 different lots of automated usages. So there's a couple of gas stations and an auto body repair shop, I think. And the owner apparently owns lots of gas stations in New York City, and these leases tend to be very, very long, like 30 years long. So one of these lots is coming up for renewal, so it's really an opportunity to rethink the space and do something different. So they are suggesting to, in the place of doing a C8-1 zoning, which is heavy industry and allows for these types of automotive uses, they're actually considering doing a residential usage. So they came before the committee to discuss this. It's very, very early days. So this is quite positive because they really wanted to work with us on this. And they came and they suggested that 20% of the units would be affordable at 63% AMI, which we heard a little bit about earlier today, which is basically somewhat table stakes-ish. So we asked if they could do a little bit better. Also, I think the breakdown of the units they were proposing were a lot of studio apartments, a lot of one-bedroom apartments, a handful of two-bedroom, but not really family-oriented. So we asked them if they could do better. And they said they would basically take the number, they would go away, take the numbers, and see if they might be able to build a little bit higher to get more affordable units, which is a trade-off that we've recommended supporting in the past. So at the moment, they're planning something like an 8-story building, and they might be able to do deeper affordability if they build a little bit higher. But like I said, this is really early days, so we expect this was like the first in a long series of communications with them. I think that is pretty much, I see Anne on Zoom with her sniffly nose. I'll let her chime in at the end to make sure I haven't missed anything, but that was pretty much it for now for that presentation. Other than that, we just said that we would, next time we meet, we'll spend some time working on our responsible development policy, talking about that at the committee level. Anyone here is welcome to join. We wanted to make sure we did that right. So we're taking a little bit of extra time to make sure we did that right. It's basically just a statement on behalf of the community board of the kind of development that we'd like to see from a proactive state. So anytime we have developers come before us, we can sort of let them read up on this before they present any plans to us. Other than that, I wanted to give a shout out to some of the folks who attended the Urban Land Institute planning workshop that Celeste mentioned. I think we had Makiba Brown-Aline, Ramika Nichols-Barnes, and Miss Annette Spelling. And it's a really, really fun, I hope people had fun doing it. It's a really fun simulation of doing development and kind of understanding the trade-off of building high, commercial space, residential space, all that sort of thing. It's a really great program. So thank you all for attending that. And then last update, which is from the economic development. As Celeste mentioned, there was a walkthrough. The date was changed due to inclement weather, I believe. So only Celeste and Mr. Camacho were able to attend, but we'll be doing more of those walkthroughs. It's with Riseboro and SBS, so Small Business Services. And I think the next one, I don't know if it's confirmed yet, but it's February 28th on Wilson Avenue corridor. And so it's planned to go around 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 5 p.m. So anyone who would like to join is welcome. It's really just to, I don't know, get to know the businesses in the area and see, get a sense of what kinds of business representation is out there and also answer any questions for them and just facilitate a dialogue. So there's a little bit more participation. I think that's it. Anne, do you have anything to say to add to any of that?
I think you're exactly right. I think we just asked the lawyer for that proposal. Again, at such early stages, say we want more. If we are going to give away public, goods, you need to do better. So basically, that's really it. So it's, again, there's no decisions, no votes, no anything like that. It was just more like, come back after you've crunched some numbers with a lot better benefit for this community. But yes, thank you, Christine. Thank you.
Thank you. Feel better. Good night, everyone.
All right, keep it going. Environmental protection, transportation, sanitation, and parks and rec.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Ben Tucker. I'm the co-chair of EPTS, the Parks, Rec, Transportation, Sanitation, and Environmental Protection Committee. The committee met on January 21st. We had 2 items on the agenda. The first item was DOT was there. They were giving us an informational presentation. If you recall, we had asked DOT to study a one-way conversion on Ridgewood Place. We were asking them to take a look at making Ridgewood Place westbound one-way street. Right now it's a 2-way street, and a lot of the residents on that block were talking about the buses being backed up, there being a lot of traffic and honking, and sometimes cars, in order to sort of facilitate the flow of traffic, will park like halfway onto the sidewalk. which means that half the sidewalk is now unusable because someone's parking on it. So we had asked DOT to do a study. DOT came back to us for this informational proposal. They said that they conducted the study and determined that a conversion would not significantly impact traffic volumes, and it would improve safety because it would clear up some of the sidewalk and people wouldn't have to park halfway onto the sidewalk. So the update we got from them is that they're going to start looking into in the springtime what that's actually going to look like and what a timetable is going to look like. And I believe they'll come back to the board to give us the full schematics of it once they have a plan for that. So that was our first agenda item. Our second one was we had, I think I mentioned it the last time I was up here, but we had taken up as a committee a very deliberate discussion on a process called daylighting, which is a policy that is a traffic safety policy. And so we invited some experts to come present to us on what it is, what the benefits are for the community, how it might improve traffic safety, and how the city would actually go about implementing it and what that would look like if it is implemented. So the group that came to present to us was called Transportation Alternatives, and they are an advocacy group for different street safety measures and organizing for different methods of safe transportation that are diversified. So bikes, buses, public transit, a mixture that keeps everyone safe and ways to keep those things flowing at the same time safely. The two people who presented were named Alex Moreno, who is the volunteer co-chair, and Kathy Park-Price, who was the organizer for Transportation Alternatives in the borough-wide organizer for Brooklyn. And they gave us an informational presentation. So I'll try and recap it as best as I can and as quickly as I can. Daylighting is a process where if you are driving in a car and you are approaching an intersection, or if you are a pedestrian and you're trying to cross the crosswalk, oftentimes there is a lack of visibility. You might not, if you're in a car, you might not be able to see the corner. You might have to, if you're at a stop sign, you might have to inch up before you make a right or left turn because you might not be able to see the crossing traffic in front of you. If you're a pedestrian, it could feel unsafe to go and cross the street if you're not sure that the driver of the car that's approaching can see you. And so what daylighting is it will remove the last car on the block for 15 feet, which in New York State is actually the law that no parking is allowed within 15 feet of the curb, but we just don't enforce it in New York City. It's just not enforced at all. And people just sort of park as they please. And what this leads to is a lot of accident crashes specifically. These crashes are happening specifically at intersections. And I pulled up some stats because these are publicly available statistics. But in the last 12 months in the CB4 area, there were 1,337 crashes. And that resulted in 624 injuries, including 118 pedestrians hurt and 7 fatalities. And so what we heard from Transportation Alternatives, and DOT has studied this, because what they'll do is they will daylight like one intersection at a time or 2 or 3 at a time in dangerous situations. And in fact, they will just mail a letter to CB4 and say, these are the 10 intersections we're daylighting next week, without like a rhyme or reason to it. They just say this hits our metrics for being a dangerous intersection, so we're going to daylight it. And we do know that this is a physical process, a design process that increases safety. I don't have the statistic, but they said it was I don't have the exact statistic, but they said it was a majority of these injuries are happening in the intersection, in the crosswalk. So it's not enough to have a person crossing the street at the light and the car proceeding at the light and making a turn using a signal. Oftentimes there's just a blind spot, or for whatever reason, the car can't see it as visibly. And so that's why a majority of these crashes are actually happening in the intersections, which you would kind of think is the safest place to cross the street. So with that said, there's been a lot of momentum in the political space to get more intersections daylit and more rapidly. And citywide, the Adams administration has promised to do 1,000 a year. There's a city council bill to do universal daylighting that has been co-signed by I don't know exactly how many members of the council, but about half, like enough to get this bill to pass. There is a lot of momentum for state legislators, Governor Hochul mentioned it in her State of the State that she wants to get all intersections that are within 1,000 feet of a school daylit. And so my point is, you're going to see a lot more of these intersections daylit. And what we wanted to do as a committee was take up a very deliberate process of using our power as a community board to sort of suggest to the city, if you're going to do it, here's how we want you to do it. Here is what would benefit us the most. And also because the city has money and then they're investing it in physically protecting some of these corners and making a physical infrastructure change to these corners that would physically slow down cars as they make this turn. We really want to make sure that Bushwick gets some of that in a way that benefits us, and they don't just come, paint the corner, say it's daylit, and then anybody can kind of just park over the paint and you're back to square one and you're not anymore safe. And so we took up over a number of consecutive committee meetings, a resolution, and I'm going to read that out in terms of what it considers. But I would say the main point is, as a board, the best thing we can do is advocate for what works best for Bushwick and to make sure that the city is investing in us equally. Because in other neighborhoods, they're going to move the bike racks to the corner so that you have nice bike racks there. They're going to have boulders there and art and planters, bioswales. And we could really use that. We have a lot of flooding. We have a lot of flooding in Bushwick. And if instead of just painting it and leaving, we now had the city investing and putting planters and bioswales that'll filter out some of our rainwater and collect some of our rainwater before it hits the sewer quickly, then that would be a tremendous benefit to a lot of the homeowners here, a lot of the people who are experiencing flooding. So with that, I'm going to read what the board's recommendation was. And I also want to say that this passed committee unanimously because we really deliberated this on a while. We felt it was very important to deliberate, not just over the course of one meeting. And we invited folks from other committees and other board members to come and weigh in because we wanted to take into account all of the concerns that we were hearing from residents. Specifically because those last two parking spots on the intersection, those are the last two parking spots on the block. If something physical is being built there, then that is the elimination of two parking spots. And we wanted to take that into consideration because we know that it is a concern for the residents. And I feel confident that after having deliberated this a bunch, we arrived at what we think will steer the city towards really investing in actual safety for these intersections. So does anyone have any questions before I read the resolution? Let me get you a microphone.
Stephanie Anderson, CB4. So is the daylighting, is that permanent? Would that be a permanent situation?
Yeah, I mean,
whether they paint or whether they put the garden.
I would like to say yes. Nothing's permanent. Basically, anything could be undone. But yeah, it would become certainly more permanent if a physical structure were to go into that corner, and especially if they were to build it out. If they added like a flood mitigation zone with flowers, that would actually connect to the sewer underneath it. So it would be a lot harder to uninstall that.
Right.
Painting, they could just undo the paint and open it back up. And so ideally it would become permanent. Yeah.
It sounds great. Thank you.
Hi, I'm just wondering if the Thomas Green. I'm just wondering if the drinking and dining sheds would be part of the daylighting. Goes to me that sometimes they're the most block. They block mostly the intersections, and they feel pretty dangerous if they're right on the corner.
Yeah, Thomas, that's a great question. So those are going to be the DOT actually runs the program for the dining sheds also. So it won't be the same program, but there often will be a case where the dining shed will have the corner spot there if it's a corner location. However, the dining shed program is only 6 months. It's an April to November program. So under the program now, the restaurant will have to pack up their stuff during those during the winter months from November till April. And so we did mention in this resolution that our goal is that they would deprioritize an intersection where there is already a dining shed going up there. Let that be like the last intersections you deal with. Like deal with the intersections first that don't have a dining shed in them for 6 months out of the year. And this is only the case where the restaurant is the corner spot, basically. So I don't know what the figure for that is, but we're hoping that they'll take care of the other intersections first, and then, like I said, it's only 6 months out of the year that the shed is there. So I think it's unlikely that they would be able to put some sort of physical structure there or physical infrastructure there, like a bike rack or something like that, because then the shed would kind of have to go up around the city bike rack or around the bike rack. So I think it's likely that those corners will end up just being a painted situation for 6 months out of the year. The sheds. I think that by standardizing the program, the hope is that it'll make it a little bit more safe because you won't have people with like these haphazard sheds built. But I live across the street from Rebecca's, and there's been like a whole bunch of crashes already into their outdoor dining shed on the corner there. So it definitely happens. So if there's no other questions, I'm going to read through the recommendation that.
I'm sorry, video.
Oh, hi, Z.
Hi, Z. Yes, hi, community member CB4 as well. Just a good question. First of all, thank you for that. And just with this daylighting, unfortunately, they did that in my corner, but they did not mark it. What they did is just put a no parking sign, and unfortunately, it's now become a trap for vehicles. Not only did they do that without letting us know, they took another 3 more parking spots. So we really don't have parking. And to me, my frustration is not much me as a driver. It's really not a luxury for me. It's something I have to do. I have a problem is with the mopeds. There is no respect. So when I'm turning and everything, now I'm seeing these mopeds that come totally blind at me. They'll come and everything, and I'm seeing them almost hitting people. So it's not so much us who are driving our vehicles, because we're getting punished for everything. Not only are we getting ticket to death, parking spots are now taken away, which eventually is just going to make me, for example, leave Bushwick. So I'd like to know how we're going to be addressing those issues before I leave Bushwick. These individuals with all these mopeds and everything going totally against traffic and everything. How is that going to be addressed? I'll give it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you. That's also a great question. I would say for starters, what my hope is, and sometimes I have to drive also for work and for various reasons, having visibility as a driver is really helpful. So you can have a wider turn radius and you can see around and not have to worry about a moped coming up on you as you're making that turn. Beyond that, I understand your sentiment that it feels like sort of like the mopeds are going around the law and you're trying to be a law-abiding citizen and drive as safely as possible. And so I don't have a solution for all of that. I think that some of that is DOT's work in trying to build out infrastructure for everyone so that everyone can manage safely. With regards to, you said that they killed one spot on your corner with a sign. I don't know what the other spots would have been for. I think the daylighting would just be the one spot on the corner. But you gave a great example that they just put up a sign and nothing else, and doesn't seem like anyone's really following that sign, are they?
No, unfortunately not, because it looks like a regular parking spot late in the evening when you're coming home very late at night, and then you get surprised with a $150 ticket.
Right,
So
right.
really
And so the
unfair.
idea that we were having is that, let's say, for instance, there is a city bike dock in the middle of your block that could be moved to the edge, and so that nobody can park their car there on the spot that they're not supposed to park. And if there is a city bike dock taking a spot in the middle of the block, ideally, according to our recommendation, they would move that forward. Or if there's a bike rack in the street, they could move that and make a bike corral on the corner so you have more sidewalk space.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't want to take too much time. Thank you.
Joanna?
Yes, good evening. Joanna Bennett, Community Board 4. I attended that meeting, and one of the questions that I addressed to the presenters was the issue that in Bushwick, at the intersections, we have bodegas, and the bodegas have delivery trucks. And this impedes the visibility of not only drivers, but pedestrians. We're standing in the street, we can't see what's coming, but these bodegas and these other businesses that are located at corners must stay in business. I don't think that the people who gave the presentation addressed that question. You know, often people come and they do presentations about the city and the plans, but they're not specific to the needs of Bushwick. And if you look around, you'll see that's what we see. And so do you know what do they plan to come back? I mean, I'm just concerned about that. This is the way our neighborhood functions. And to say, to say that these people can have delivery trucks at the intersections that may be parked there for maybe an hour to unload and their merchandise. How is that going to, how do we deal with the daylighting situation? And did they address that? I'm trying to ask. I don't remember if they answered that question to my satisfactory.
Thank you, Ms. Bennett. Yeah, I remember you were there and you asked about this, and I think they didn't have because this is the advocacy group, so they didn't specifically have an answer to it, but we can sort of contextualize based on what DOT has said that they wanted, some other policies that DOT has said that they want to do. As you illustrated now, it's not a great situation. If a truck is parked outside a bodega for an hour and that reduces the visibility for an hour, that's not a great situation. We don't really want that to happen either. In this case, if a truck is physically prevented from going up to the corner, it's going to be on DOT to come up with some other solutions. But I can just say offhand, I know that DOT has been, through our committee, they've also through like committee mail review, we've covered this, but they're trying to incentivize off-hour deliveries. Like they're offering to subsidize people to do deliveries not during the daytime and not specifically during times when they're rush hour traffic or there's a lot of traffic out there. And so hopefully they can expand something like that, or they can incentivize off-hour deliveries enough that people will do it. Or as you were saying, maybe some of these bodegas might say, okay, we don't have a loading zone anymore. Like, I'm going to need you to do this delivery at a different time. And then the other alternative is, and this is not coming from me, but this is something that DOT might do, is create loading zones and I've seen this around, and in certain parts of Manhattan, they have these where the parking is designated for loading zones only. And this is not really included in what we discussed at the committee, or it's not a policy we're advocating for at this time, but DOT would probably likely have to do something to that extent.
Thank you.
Hello? Okay. Jason Gers, CB4, also a member of the Transportation Committee here. Just first to respond to Ms. Bennett, I think we all shared the concerns about double parking trucks and how that impedes visibility and safety for pedestrians. There is a website that DOT has where you can suggest a loading zone where they will do exactly what Ben is talking about, which they will reserve an area of the curb so that a bodega can get a delivery from a truck, a beer truck, eggs, milk, whatever people need, and that truck then no longer needs to double park or park in a crosswalk, which is a safety hazard. Instead, they have normal access to the curb, and we think that would be a suggestion you could take, and maybe that's something we can share to you offline. I don't know if it's about loading zones or you want to go next. It's just to take it back to why we passed this recommendation. Again, the main idea is safety for pedestrians as well as for motorists. Most crashes occur at intersections. I have an 11-year-old daughter here who is scared to walk and be independent on her own in the city, and that's what we want for her to grow up and be safe. And so I'm always thinking about her. And she's little, you know what I mean? Like a driver may not be able to see her crossing the street. She may not be able to see a car as she's approaching an intersection. So we think that this treatment is something that could be beneficial for everybody who lives in the neighborhood. And while universal daylighting, meaning making all intersections daylit, is something that is being discussed at the council level and the state level, we stop short of fully recommending that or asking for that, but instead focused on where we want to see the city implement this kind of policy first, which, Ben, you can read the recommendation, but is in areas of schools, hospitals, transit, where we think there's the highest amount of pedestrian traffic and where we think it's going to yield the most benefit for the neighborhood, and we ask the DOT to engage with us on that policy. Thanks.
Next question.
You. So Bennett, did you say that this is something that the city was going to do regardless of, they would just sort of buy it?
Yeah, that I can't speak with certainty that it's an inevitability, but I can say that there is a lot of momentum for it. And the governor mentioned it in the State of the State. I also wanted to add, like, we're not the first community board to take this up. Over the past year or so, which is about the length of time that we've sort of been like tossing this around in committee. I believe over the past 15 months, there have been more than 21 community boards citywide that have passed a resolution in support of universal daylighting. And so that represents like something like 2.5, 3 million people. And so I can't get up here and say it's a given. This is 100% happening legislatively. There's legislation to make it happen, but there's so much momentum, and most of our local elected officials are for it. And a lot of statewide electeds and a lot of citywide electeds. So reading the writing on the wall, it is very much coming. And so as a committee, we really wanted to make recommendations that we feel would really serve the needs of Bushwick and actually maximize safety and investment in this infrastructure.
I just wanted to, I didn't want to take up too much of the time because I know you wanted to read the statement, but I don't belong to this committee, but I attended that meeting and I think it's really fascinating. I think it's great that you guys are getting ahead of the issue and actually like proactively, thinking about what's best for Bushwick. And yes, there's potentially sacrificing a parking spot or two, but as you've said before, we're all pedestrians at some moment, and it really makes for a safer, more walkable city. And of course, it can't fix all the problems. I've got a terrible problem at my intersection with like triple parking on alternate side of the street days where 18-wheelers just sit and honk for like 20 minutes on end. But it can't fix all of the problems, but I do think this visibility will make for a much safer environment. And also we see a lot of cars clipping, that last car that's parked at the intersection as well. So I'm just really grateful that you all are thinking about this in a proactive way, because also they discuss like, not just having a cement boulder or something like this, but how can we also address, flooding issues in Bushwick and things like this. So it's really great that you guys are being proactive about thinking about how best to do this for Bushwick.
Thanks, Christine.
Yeah, this will be, I just have a little concern. This will be, I know I have went a couple of places. There's one place that I know that someone was killed on Broadway, Saddam Ditmas, and there's a delivery truck there because he has this food trucks that he has for food trucks, and there is a sign, no parking, but the truck's always there. So I took pictures, and my question that I really have a concern is, why are they taking 3 parking spots? One, why not take half of the corner? Because what happens is, I see it, and I was standing there about 3 hours the other day. And what happens is, in the corner, the cars are coming. There's no parking in that corner, but some car does. So you don't see the person that's coming because you're making the stop sign. So the car is parked there. But he don't have to take that whole parking. He could take it from the corner where the building starts. And he starts seeing. Then you see the open spot. Because I took pictures, and I took pictures of the location. The city is taking parking away 2 or 3 times, 2 or 3 parkings, and they don't need all that space for daylight. I can prove it because I'm a driver, and I did it 6 and 7 times on that intersection. And it can be proven from the corner where you start is not a whole car. So that corner where the building starts and the people are crossing and the cars there should be no parking. And where you cross it, they got the pavement walking, that should be the crossing perimeter. But We don't stop there because we think the car is going to stop.
When you're driving, you don't stop there?
Correct.
Yeah.
Because you got to stop where it says stop, where the line is. Okay. I was there 3 hours in that location the other day. I took pictures. 3 hours, and I took pictures, and I saw you don't really need that whole parking spot with the sign. They don't use it, and the truck's still parked there. Yes, put something that's right, but don't take the whole thing, the whole 3 parking spot, because daylight don't go all the way back there. If the building is in this corner and I'm crossing here, I want to see where the guy's crossing. And for instance, you need to go and see the location. Don't take my word for it. Come there. DOT only gonna go there, all right, yeah, do their job and mark a check. And then we gotta worry about it when you got 3 parking spots and people are fighting. Okay, and they're killing people each other for parking spots. So
Go ahead. The other co-chair has some comments on Zoom. Go ahead, Christian.
Hi, everybody. So sorry I can't be there in person. I'm in East Africa at the moment, so a little bit removed. But I won't take up too much time. I think it'll be helpful if we read the statement, because I think a lot of the comments and questions are really valuable. And I think I would underscore that we knowing that these would be a lot of the concerns of the board and the community at large, we tried to address a lot of these concerns in the statement itself. So before you read it, Ben, I would just underscore that, again, the purpose of the statement is not to ask for more daylighting. It's merely to clarify how we want daylighting done when it is done in Bushwick. Second, we explicitly name the importance of preserving and even restoring parking wherever possible. And third, I think a lot of the stuff that has come up in the question so far are things that daylighting doesn't directly address. And we understand that and are looking for other ways to address a lot of those problems. And in the statement, knowing that daylighting won't solve all of our traffic issues, we call for other traffic calming measures where possible to complement daylighting and its ability to increase visibility. But I think it'll be easier to have a conversation about it if you all hear the actual statement and can respond to it.
Thanks, Christian. Also, shout out to Christian. He's up at whatever ungodly hour he's up at to contribute to the meeting. So I'm going to read the resolution that we hashed out. As Christian mentioned, we did this with the intention of taking into account all the concerns of the various board members. So the recommendation says, be it resolved that where daylighting is implemented in Brooklyn Community District 4, the community board calls on the New York City Department of Transportation to adhere to the following priorities. Prioritize daylighting at intersections within a 1-block radius of a school, park, transit station, place of worship, medical center, senior center, or a facility for people with disabilities. Prioritize daylighting at intersections with the highest rate of vehicle crashes, pedestrian injuries, and fatalities. Deprioritize intersections in which parking has already been eliminated to support other curb uses, such as roadway cafes, bike corrals, and zip car rentals. 4, wherever possible, enforce daylighting with physical barriers, especially rain gardens, public art, bike corrals, and bus loading zones and shelters. 5, wherever possible, pair daylighting with additional traffic calming and pedestrian safety measures, such as raised crosswalks, LPIs. LPIs is when they time the crosswalk so that you can cross before the light changes, so you have a head start to cross before the car makes a turn. And it's a safety measure that DOT has put into place. So pair daylighting with additional traffic calming and pedestrian safety measures, such as raised crosswalks, LPIs, and bollards. Minimize parking loss, and wherever possible, consolidate other curb uses, consolidating bike corrals into daylight intersections to restore parking. And 7, which is one of the most important, is advise and consult with the community board before implementing daylighting in Community District 4. As we've mentioned before, this is the type of thing where DOT will come to us and say, here's the 10 that we're doing. It's met some sort of metric for us, and that's it. And so we want to have a measure of local input on it. And I just want to echo what Jason and what Christine were saying is we recognize that there's a trade-off here and we wanted to take that into account, but by and large, everyone was supportive of this common sense design thing that improves safety. I'm not a parent, but I can speak to, I have nieces and nephews, and I would, really appreciate my niece in Brooklyn, who's a 7th generation New Yorker, to grow up in an environment where she's not afraid to cross the street and walk to school. And, I'll note, like, I grew up in the city and we didn't have like every single person driving an SUV back then. And now everyone has a giant car, a giant crossover or an SUV. It was not really the case however many years ago I was a child. Any further questions?
All right, we have one.
Hello. Oh, wow. I've never done this. My name is Gio Justiniano. I'm a public committee member, not on this committee. But I think that this conversation about daylighting, like I understand that it could be such a divisive issue in the community board, especially given that some of the folks here and in the neighborhood are, homeowners. A lot of us have a vehicle. I myself, my partner and I also have a vehicle, but I just wanted to lend my voice in support of this as a lifelong resident, as someone who was raised here in Bushwick, because I don't have children, but my dad is 83 years old and he has Alzheimer's dementia. And the amount of times that he's almost been hit by a car on Irving and Jefferson Street drives me insane. The amount of people who pass intersections, drivers who pass intersections where there's, a 4-way stop sign or whatever, it's criminal. And we do have a responsibility to think about the folks in the neighborhood who are vulnerable to reckless drivers. I understand that, many people see this as your parking is being taken away, but given the data that was presented not too long ago about the amount of accidents and people who've been hurt, it's necessary and it's crucial. And I just wanted to lend my voice to this because I don't want for the conversation to be that this is just people coming in here and deciding that this is what's necessary for the neighborhood. It would benefit everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Gio. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that.
Last comment, then we have to move on, folks.
Stephanie Anderson, CB4. When you were speaking about daylighting in the intersection, would that like say if a church is over here, would that daylighting spot only be in front of the church or both ways, or would it be all 4 corners in that intersection?
Ideally, it would become all 4 corners of the intersection, and in a world where they pass let's say the state or the city passes a universal daylighting bill, it would be all 4 intersections.
Oh, okay.
And the one spot closest to the curb on each side of the intersection.
But as for now, it would be just
as of now, DOT is just doing it like one at a time.
Oh, okay.
Just like a few at a time or one at a time.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ben. All right, we still have one committee report to go, or a joint committee report. That's Civic Public Safety, Religious, and Health Human Service Senior Citizens Veterans.
I know you're tired and ready to go home, so I'm going to make this short. We had a co-meeting of our committees, the Health Committee and the Public Safety. Thank you, dear. And the Civic Public Safety Committee on February 13th. Okay. We had 2 presentations. The first one was for the co-street naming of Cooper Street between Central and Wilson Avenues in honor of Mary Neal Grice. We tabled that for additional information, so that one is put on the side. And we expect to have the additional information by our next meeting. The other was very, very interesting and is something that the presenter would like to bring to the entire board. And it's from Kamal McQueen, who's a sales manager and family service counselor for Cypress Hills Cemetery. And his presentation was basically providing us with information for preparation. You know, everybody thinks because you're young that you can't die today or tomorrow, but guess what? In this day and age, any one of us can go at any time. Like I said, he'd like to come and present to the entire board, and his presentation to our committee was very interesting. So that was it. Any questions?
We thank you.
We have one other thing. We had an announcement to the committee, and that announcement was that on Thursday, the 20th, from 6 to 8, our member, Elvina Davis, is being honored by the Congresswoman for Black History Month.
Tomorrow night, 6 p.m., 108 Montrose. All right, that concludes our committee reports this evening, folks. We will move it on to recommendations. Committee chairs, any recommendations? I believe there's just one.
Only one.
The one and only.
Hi, everyone. I was just here. I'm not going to read the recommendation again, but our recommendation is in support of the measures that the committee proposed, guiding the implementation of daylighting in the city.
Is there a motion? Barbara Jackson, is there a second? Well, I need a name. Joanna Fuentes Singh. All in favor? Any opposed?
Aye.
And okay, I got
Oh,
one
no.
opposed.
No,
Oh.
no, that was in favor.
Okay, all right, Anne. I said opposed. You said aye. Okay. Anyways, any opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, old business. Going once, going twice. Anyone on Zoom? I don't see anyone. New business. Going once, going twice. Anyone on Zoom? Nope. Announcements, a minute and a half. We are timing you. Please line up.
Whoever's up is losing 5 seconds. You don't hurry up.
All right, I'll be fast. This is Joe from Friends of Irving Square Park. My friend Queen, who organizes Bushwick Family Day, wanted me to start spreading the word. July 19th, Irving Square Park. Save the date. I know it's a long ways away, but very fun. She wanted all of the board members to be there. There's free food. There's music. I think Mike was here before. I don't know if he's still here. DJ Mike, legendary. It's the biggest party in Bushwick I've ever seen out and about. So, Mike, if you want to do a follow-up announcement after this, you can. Get back in line.
Hello, my name is Mike Horton. It's a really nice event. Every year it gets bigger and bigger. People come from all over. It's like getting the families back together. We would love for everybody to attend. Bring your family, the kids. It's really nice, free food, and we accepting donations. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Fran from Councilmember Nurse's office. Just going to highlight 3 things. The rest are all over there on the table. The next Know Your Rights seminar we're doing on February 27th at 6 p.m. online. So folks can talk to the New York Immigration Coalition about what to do when ICE has an encounter with people. We had to cancel our sanitation town hall because of the weather, even though it didn't really snow, but now it's going to be on March 6th. It's a virtual town hall. The flyer is also on the table. Don't miss it. DOT, DSNY will be present. One thing I want to say about the intersections is that we are pressing DOT for speed bumps, traffic lights, and crosswalk improvements across the district and places where they have said no to studies. So please let me know those locations and report them every day to 311 and send those numbers to our office. And last but not least, the Portland Loo, also known as a public bathroom, is finally finished at Irving Square Park. It's not officially open yet, but it will be, and we will be sending CB4 an official invitation to come ribbon cut the bathroom so everyone can go do their business at the park. And next up will be the dog run, followed by the playground in that order. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Lacey Tauber, Brooklyn Borough President Reynosa's office. Okay, we talked earlier about applying for the board. If you are a returning board member and your term was up and you forgot to apply, you now have until noon tomorrow to get your application in. So it's up, it got reposted. Go do it right now, please. Okay, everything else. We have free tax prep at Borough Hall through April 9th. It's for certain qualified people. Check out this flyer for more information. You have to make an appointment. So flyers are over there. Borough Culture Grant Program. The New York City Tourism Foundation is accepting applications for this program. They help with marketing and promotion of arts and cultural programs and events. So if you're a 501c3 cultural org based in Brooklyn, you can apply by March 3rd. I think there's more information on our website. And then tomorrow, we are having an event for homeowners at Borough Hall with the Department of Finance about how to lower your property taxes. It's from 5 to 8 at Borough Hall, so come learn how to save some money. Thanks.
Hello, everyone. Alex from Riseboro Community Partnership. And as was mentioned earlier briefly, Riseboro has been partnering up with SPS, Small Business Services, to help the mom and pop shops within our neighborhood to assure that businesses that have been a part of our community remain a part of our community. So with that being said, we've also been doing commercial revitalization, beautifying the commercial avenues, those avenues being Knickerbocker Avenue, Troutman Street, Irving Avenue, and Wyckoff Avenue. We've been focusing on those 4 commercial avenues. So we will be having a Bushwick Spring community cleanup, and we are asking anyone and everyone who has the time and have the capacity to come out and help us beautify the avenue and take pride within Bushwick. And that will be in March, April, May, and June, 1 day for each month. So the flyer will be in the back. The Bushwick cleanup flyer is in green. I repeat, the Bushwick cleanup flyer is in green. Even if you can only make 1 day, it would be super appreciative. And then part of our housing department, Riseboro recently did sort of a one-shot deal assessment at our offices where we offered it to our tenants to help them out with whether it be with rent or any other things that they're facing with housing. But we would now like to open it up for all of Bushwick community. It worked out really, really well. And those that attended, we had, I believe, over a 90% approval rate for those that came in for the assistance. So we want to open it up to the rest of the community. If you know anyone who can use some assistance, whether it be with rent and things of that nature, Riseboro has staff specifically on March 6th. We'll have the office filled with one-on-one support. So folks can come in. They don't have to make a reservation beforehand. They can walk right in and receive that one-on-one support. Thank you, everyone.
What was that? 10 seconds more? Hi, Pablo Rivera from Bushwick Sports and Recreation. We just launched a new nonprofit here. Really quick, it's not just a little league, it's a sports and recreation. What we'll do from little kids, 3-year-olds to senior wellness programs, right? So right now we have running, girls softball, girls and boys soccer, boys in-house league. And when we say in-house league, we mean, for example, 2 days ago, we just got the news that we got chartered with Little League International. And we had to go to a whole vetting process where they charter Bushwick. So only in our only the kids within the boundaries of the Bushwick map will be allowed to play Little League under our charter. Other programs that we want to run it's in the works. It's like volleyball. What's my friend here? Golf frisbee. It's called frisbee disc golf. Yeah, we're working on that, and we're working on a lot of stuff. We want to be very inclusive because not everybody just plays baseball, right? So we having that in consideration. My phone number is 347-388-8271. We have our office at 439 Wilson, and that we'll be doing registration there every Saturday for now until we find other places from 11 to 2:30 every Saturday. Thank you. Good night. Flyers are here.
Hello, good evening, everybody. And I apologize for before, I didn't know the protocol. Uh, I'm here from CABS Health Network, and I just want to ensure that everybody in the community is aware of the services we provide. We do health screening. Thank you so much. We do health screening and workshops. So, for example, recently I was in this center with the seniors, and we were educating them and presenting as well. But if you have a center or a congregation where you want us to do a health screening, perhaps a workshop. Tomorrow we have hypertension workshop. We could bring it to your location and help your congregation understand the needs for health workshops as well as screenings. So, and we also have home health aides as well as care management. So we're here for the community, and we want you to know, always reach out, or if you're not sure, just reach out and ask us a question. Our number, is 718-388-0220. Again, that's 718-388-0220, CABS Health Network. Thank you. Have a good evening.
Good evening, everyone. Again, David from New York City Commission on Human Rights. I wanted to again say that our law applies to employment, housing, and public spaces, kind of like here. We enforce the New York City anti-discrimination law across a series of things based off of who you are, your gender, your sexual orientation, your perceived national origin. One of the reasons why we're here tonight is because we have a new law passed by City Council as of January 1st. If you have a criminal background, it is illegal for a housing provider to discriminate against you if you're looking for housing. They have to give you a fair chance document saying why they are denying you housing. So it's illegal just for someone to say, well, you have a criminal background, I don't want to rent you a home. There are some exclusions to this. For example, say if you have a background in having like pedophilia, for example, and you're choosing to live near a school. So there are some exceptions. I have our flyer in the back. You can always consult our website. My number is 646-656-3666, but the number here is 212-416-0197. You can always ask us for workshops or questions, or if you think you've been discriminated against, the worst thing we can say is no, but we're happy to help, and have a good night. I think I got it.
Good evening, everyone. Maria Valdez from the Office of Senator Julia Salazar. We have a Fair Clinic on February 27th from 10 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. I have the flyers back there. So if you know someone that wants to apply for a reduced MetroCard and void the fee of not paying the MetroCard, please refer them to our office. There's a list of the requirements that's needed, so our office will be supporting with that. As a reminder, we have tenant support unit every first Tuesday of the month from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at our office. Walk-ins are welcome. If you need to call our office, you can do so as well. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Louisa from the DeKalb branch of Brooklyn Public Library. I just have a couple announcements. Number one is that the library just opened the 62nd branch. There is a brand new branch of Brooklyn Public Library downtown, the Library for Arts and Culture. Really beautiful. I would encourage everyone to visit. Here in Bushwick, at my branch, we have an English conversation group starting on Tuesday evenings. So that's just a drop in to come practice English with your neighbors. We're also doing a lot more tabling with different organizations. So I'd encourage you to check out our website and see what we've got going on each week. I also want to remind everyone that you can use our meeting rooms. So you can book our meeting rooms if you need to have a meeting or just need a quiet space. We have 2 meeting rooms that you can use at the DeKalb Library and 1 at the Irving branch. And I also wanted to highlight at the Irving branch, they're having this diabetes self-management course. We had it at DeKalb last month and people really loved it. There was a whole group that came down from the Bronx every week. So it was a really excellent class provided by NYC Health. Thanks, everyone.
Hi everyone, Zachary Hendrickson. Enough of you have told me that you like it actually when I mentioned DSA things, so I'm gonna keep doing that until you tell me to stop. We have our next North Brooklyn branch meeting happening March 22nd. That's a Saturday from 2 to 4 p.m. at Bushwick Library. It's very early, so we actually don't have an agenda, but I imagine we'll probably be talking about whatever the heck is going on with our mayor right now. So it might be interesting to some of us in this room. And I will do my best to have flyers here at our next meeting since there's enough time. I will also just share a little bit of information. I've been really inspired and moved by the work and the relationships that I built here in this community board. And so one of the things I worked on in our organization over the last year was to pass a resolution that instructs everyone in DSA across the city to start really seriously working to make deeper relationships with local community-based institutions like our community boards, our churches, and other places. That work is still really, really early because a lot of us don't know the people we should know. And so, yeah, I just want you all to know that. It really means a lot to me, the relationships I've built here, and I'm trying to make sure that other people are making those relationships as well. So I hope to see you all next month if you're interested.
Good evening, everyone. Christopher Graham, and all of you are very happy to see me, not because it's me, but because I'm the last one to speak and you're ready to go home. All right. Yay. All right. So I'm here to announce once again the Growing Forward HBCU College Tour, which will be taking place this year in March from April 13th to the 19th, where we go from Brooklyn, New York, all the way to Atlanta. We visit 11 different schools within that week. We visit Morgan State College, Bowie State University, Howard University, Virginia State, Hampton, North Carolina Central, North Carolina A&T, Clark, Spelman, and Morehouse. And we do that all in a week. The kids can get on the bus, they can bring their SAT scores, their transcripts, and they can go, if they haven't applied, they can walk into the admissions office and present themselves and make a case for themselves before the admissions and come away with a college acceptance. So with that being said, if you have any children, nieces, nephews, neighbors, anybody, they can get on the bus. And like I like to tell the children, your parents are not going to take you to 11 different schools in a week. So get on the bus with us, without them. Thank you.
I thought I saw a hand on Zoom, but I guess they put it down. So
Oh, no, it's me.
yeah,
Hi.
Andrew, did you have something?
Yeah, hi, Andrew Choi, CB4 member here, or Andrew Chow, as Camacho calls me. I'm also a leader at Bushwick Housing Independence Project. Just wanted to take a moment to invite everybody to the monthly community meeting happening on Wednesday, February 26th. That's at 311 Central Ave, El Puente's Bushwick location, between 6:30 and 8:30. We're going to be talking about how tenants in rent-stabilized apartments can submit complaints to Housing and Community Renewal, and how we can use those complaints to build power in our buildings. Stop by. We speak Spanish too.
What day was that, Andrew?
That is Wednesday, February 26th.
The 26th. Got it. Thank you. All right. We are now moving on to our second roll call. Board members, please be ready and do not forget to sign in. Otherwise, you will be marked as absent. Linda Whitfield. Linda Whitfield. Okay, got you. Jerry Valentine. Ben Tucker.
Good night, everybody.
Got you, Jerry. Ben. Got you. Christian Tate was
Present.
on
Good night,
Zoom.
everybody.
James Stewart was excused. Annette Spellin. Milagro Sandoval. Alice Ruiz. Raul Rubio. Zuma Navoa. Ramika Nichols Barnes. Alex Moreno. Freddie Madison. Christine Malden. Luisa Jose. Tara Jones Thomas. Virgie Jones. Kaisha Johnson. Barbara Jackson. Tanisha Honeygan.
Present. Good night.
Tanisha Honeygan.
Present. Good
Got you,
night.
Deborah Hicks.
Good night.
Zachary Hendrickson. Ann Guiney was excused, also on Zoom. Christopher Graham. Jason Gares. Joanna Fuentes Singh. Freddie Fowler. Cecilia Fabian. Karina Dodd. Alvina Davis. Andrew Choi.
Presente, buenas noches.
Felix Ceballos. Robert Camacho. Robert Camacho. I know you. Okay, thank you. I didn't hear you, Robert. You're in the back. Makiba Brown. Joanna Bennett.
Good night.
Stephanie Anderson. Motion to adjourn. Barbara Jackson makes a motion, second by Mr. Fowler. All in favor? Any
Aye.
opposed? Any abstentions? So moved. 8:50. Good night, everyone.